I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got love, peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got joy and pain and joy inside my DNA.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel The Fanfic Fantasy. Join us as we explore the world of fanfiction and fantasy and bring you the best story and discussions. This is the first part of What If Muzan Was a Human? So give this video a like and subscribe for more videos in future. So let's get into the fanfic. If anyone ever asked about his sickly condition, Kibutsuji Muzan would reply with a simple shrug, then dive in to read his book, refusing to answer. For you see, at the tender age of 15 years old, Kibutsuji Muzan has existential crisis. Honestly, he is glad he is sick. Like those few noble families lucky enough to be educated, Muzan knew nothing but war awaits outside. Had he been healthy, he would have been sent to another province for any clan in favor of Kibutsuji's right now, be it Minamoto, Sakamoto, or whatever, fighting their wars. It was early death all the same. On his sick, however, he could enjoy the tranquility of the sun while he drowned his mind in books, poisons, the language of flowers, tales of myths, and every time his curiosity would be satisfied as it grows. He could demand more information normally would not be available to other teenage boys of his age, and he is happy with it. For he could set slight puppy eyes and say, "Guess I'd die with my curiosity," and his fool of a family would get whatever scroll it is he wanted. It is he. But therefore lies the problem. Kibutsuji Muzan was a curious being. Had he not been sickly, maybe he could wring his way out of battle to be a scholar, traveling around Japan, reading, studying, researching. That would be heaven. All those knowledge he could dig out of the dark. Plus, he thinks tiredly, that being sick is not fun. He feels tired all the time. He could feel every bone ache with every minute twitch. He wanted to scream and cry, but he is too tired to do anything. But then again, he doesn't want to be healthy either, not out to those stupid wars. And since he is destined to rot away here all alone, it would be nice if he could die quickly instead. But, he thinks again, rather than the battlefield, he prefers dying sickly like this, surrounded by his books. But again, being sick is not fun, but healthy only leads to grown-up children with knives and again, Kibutsuji Muzan, 15 years old, has existential crisis. His family loves him, he knew. His family is trying their best to cure him. They never gave up, no matter how fruitless it is, he knew. And those are the only reason Muzan forced himself to be obedient to this doctor. How his family managed to find a super sketchy one, he thinks, is beyond him. But his older sister and mother, who always back him up in his bedridden book scavenger, are the one who recommends him. So, pulling his scowl back and forcing his skin to stop crawling in disgust at the sight of that very suspicious smile, Muzan gave the doctor his noble, polite, yet obviously fuck-off smile. Sure, he'd drink his medicine. Sure, he'd be polite and behave in front of this pervert. But only because his mother and older sister insist. It doesn't help that the medicine smell and tastes disgusting. What the hell? Muzan sighed, putting his glass of water down and laying down on his futon, face scrunching up and trying not to vomit. The things he does for love. Muzan was cured. It was a miracle, just as that sketchy doctor miraculously disappeared. When he tried to step out to his garden in the morning spring, however, his skin burned from sunlight, and almost instantly they vaporized. His scream was apparently agonizing enough that his mother ordered each of the house's staff to find that doctor and make him pay. They never find him, however, not even a trace of him. He disappeared into thin air. Fucking asshole, he hissed under his breath, glaring at the afternoon sun. What good is he healed if he can't even travel like a normal person? Sometimes, his home smells of blood. His brothers, returning from war, did not return in pristine condition. It was normal. He had been used to the smell of blood since his father and grandfather returned with blood soaking their clothes. What he did not expect was how his hunger abruptly intensified. Sure, he has always been hungry since he was healed and banished from the sun. But it was sated bit by bit with a strictly red meat diet, half-cooked as it was. He had bullshitted that it was one of the last things that asshole doctor prescribed to him, and apparently, his family has no business not trusting their sickly son. But smelling the coppery tang of human blood, he so very badly wanted to take a bite off of his brother's shoulder. He is muscled well, so it should be very chewy. His meat and fresh and juicy too. Or he could take his hand and pick his skin apart from his fingers. He could bite them off slowly but surely, an endless satisfaction as blood flows to his mouth. What the fuck? Muzan whirled around, punching the wall to quell his creepy thoughts which had come out of nowhere. What the fuck? His fist was burrowed in the stone wall, spider web cracks crawling from the hole he just punched through. Suddenly, he was more aware of footsteps coming his way than his bleeding fist and elongated nails, and in a fit of panic, he ran. The night covered his figure as he easily jumped through a stone wall and jumped over rooftops in such impossible speed and feats no human capable of, without sound whatsoever, no problem, to the streets. After saving one of his gardeners from being raped in the streets by biting the neck of the man off and subsequently making her scream in terror, Muzan sat down, alone on the corner of the streets, his face a perfect mask of calm. He is an asshole, Muzan thinks, looking at the corpse of the man with blood leaking out freely from where he chewed his neck. And Sam was an excellent gardener, as if a young master like him would let his subjects in danger. Also, his meat vaguely tastes like grilled chicken but is chewy like red meat. He wonders if other human meat also tastes like chicken. Or maybe he's finally losing his mind. Who knows, right? Fuck, that fucking piece of shit doctor has turned him into a vampire, or ghoul, or other similar creature. What manner of bullshit is this? He knows his shit. He had suspected since he couldn't get out of the sun. But he could maintain a human diet just fine. And he thought. A low, feral growl tore the calm night. It came from him, he realized. He had killed someone. It was easy. His nails tore the man's chest like paper. His mouth, his fangs, bite the chunk of meat off the man's neck like any other food. He had killed someone. He needed human meat to survive. He would be discovered by patrols, Muzan thinks, locating said patrol some hundreds of meters from his location just fine. His senses are sharp, too sharp for a human. He could see even in the dark, could hear rats moving around and down the sewer, and could smell blood and a fresh corpse in front of him with such sweetness it made him want to puke but also want to lick it clean. His family couldn't live with him like this. He thinks they would find the corpse in his trail. He couldn't live with coppery tang around the house for days. He'd go mad for sure. He'd attack his family in no time. Holding back this hunger and bloodlust has been hard enough all this time. He did not need any bait. He had to leave. Muzan doesn't exactly want to, considering his family, but he had to. Stealing his resolve, Muzan jumped over another rooftop and ran. I'm going to find you, he promised, hissing lowly, red-slitted eyes glinting in the dark. You will fucking pay. Living on the streets has been illuminating, to say the least. Apparently, he couldn't get poisoned. Poison ivy did not affect him, nor any other poisonous berries he chewed on. Or sick, as he had not slept and simply sit under a waterfall when he sulked on his condition for days. He could also glare a bear away, if he growled hard enough. Falling from a cliff and smashing his head is also fine. He could grow his organs back in like a minute. His twisted ankle would right itself in seconds. Starving himself only leads to an unconscious rage, and he had come to consciousness with the corpse of another poor sod gnawing at his hand. So, he's essentially immortal now. Nice. He could go incognito and travel anywhere spreading murder while researching and digging a lot of things. Whatever he wants, easy, no problem. He can even sneak in and stay at the local library if he wanted to. He had broken into people's houses and stole their clothes, then sneak into their empty rooms to sleep there, no problem. The dramas he sometimes heard those times, though, sometimes makes him want to strangle someone. Multiple someones. Very nice. He pointedly doesn't think how he will probably outlive his family, or be bored for eternity, or forever unable to attend Hanabi in the afternoon spring. Alone walking on this stupid earth with stupid humans forever. If he does, it makes him want to scream. Among his other crimes, however, killing gets easier. Humans are assholes by default, himself included. So what if he jumped down on a bandit and chew his hand off? So what if he cut their limbs with his nails and easily keep them for later? So what if those assholes probably have families? He doesn't care, for sure. And if he got fighting experience from them, that's all the better. In a twist of his clumsiness during battle, he found out that, by giving his blood, he could turn other humans into demons. The soldier who raided a Rajin temple bite his hand and promptly convulsed. Muzan slapped his head away until it twisted, but the man hadn't died. He had jumped up to the ceiling, standing on the supporting wood, and watched as the man grew horns and fangs, twisted his neck back in place, and proceeds to murder all his comrades in a very gruesome, messy slaughter. He had been reluctant to jump down after he perfected the art of killing while keeping himself pristine. He refused to step on such a mess. But the newly made demon had then looked at him and knelt, head bowed down in a sign of complete loyalty. Muzan blinked. So, he could make armies with his blood now. HMMMMM. Gently stepping down, he ordered the newly made demon to be off, do whatever, stay out of trouble. And then he had disappeared, mind working on plans and hypotheses. He needs more research. And what better place to do research than in hospital? If his blood can heal twisting neck, it could probably heal other diseases too. It's high time he does something good for humanity. he thinks. Muzan easily sneaked to a quarantined wing of a hospital, entering a room from the window. Experimenting, he gave the first person on the row 1 drip of blood, the next 2 drip, the next 1/3, and promptly disappointed when the 5th one exploded and the 4th one screamed before her feet exploded and she, too, died. The first and second ones convulsed, just like that soldier demon, and their sickly, thin body filled in easily into healthy and muscled being. Hearing footsteps, Muzan retreated to a corner, hidden by a curtain. Curious about his experiments, nurses and a doctor filled in. His 2 newly made demons devoured the humans, unsurprisingly. He frowned though. They don't show the same intelligence the soldier demon has, he mused. Why is that? Stepping out of his hidden place, one of his newly made demons quivered in fear. Another one, Dumbass, he dubbed in his mind, tried to attack him. He cut Dumbass's limb off, but he still continued, and thus he punched a hole through his chest. Dumbass still moved. Muzan is slightly impressed. Scowling, Muzan decapitated him, and he finally dropped like a ragdoll. Licking blood off his fingers for show, he glanced at the other demon. "Begone," he said, voice cold and pissed as he had to dirty his hand, no matter how happy he is about how resilient his creation is. She eeped, before bowing down with a quivered, "Why yes, my lord," before she ran off. Muzan snorted. This night was, at least, educational. With such resilient soldiers, to be the shogun or to not be the shogun, that is the question. Who is he kidding? Who the hell wants to deal with imbeciles and human stupidity feat paperwork on daily basis? Not him, thank you. Maybe his approach was wrong on this. Maybe they need education. Murdering a lone doctor who experimented on children. Muzan took the man's identity easily. Willing his face and body to shape like the man, he moved. With him not needing much sleep, he could brainstorm medical knowledge needed for a doctor in a week. In his study, he almost forgets his purpose of studying this feverishly. Almost. He attended houses, offering his help to those with an incurable label on their profile. Muzan is in his doctor's shoes now, offering shady treatment, charming his way to families. However disgusting this is, he had to. For science, Muzan asked for a night to heal this family's sickly son. A night for the family to be off from their house except for their sickly member. With a drop of his blood he turned their son into a demon. With his chilly voice and hands which digs to the new demon's shoulder, he explained his circumstances, his name, how he has parents and blah blah about his life. Muzan also explained to the parents that he needs a strictly red meat diet, not to be let out on sunlight, and introduced their demon son to their parents. The family thanked him feverishly, and they seemed fine after that. 2 weeks later that demon son went rogue and killed his entire family. Muzan scowled. He tried 4 more times, because 1 data is not objective enough, and between 1 to 4 weeks, all 4 results are the same as his first experiment. Family slaughter. Muzan scowled harder. Well, a laugh which suspiciously sounds like his mother rings in his head. Every time he did something which is apparently stupid for her, at least you tried. Life gets boring after some decades. Muzan learned a lot of things about the world and about himself. His presence has become a myth, his name whispered in fear. A decade ago, he had found a cult-worshipping demon and promptly appeared in one of their creepy ceremonies. He turned the leader into a mindless demon, and watched him slaughter his cult members with his blood demon art. Serves them right, creepy assholes. That was probably when he had become famous, as he had introduced himself then. His scattering demons report to him from time to time, as he discovered they could communicate through telepathy. They brought him news, rumors, development on their powers, and such things to confirm his suspicions on the political climate and other things. In his long life, he had shape-shifted to a lot of people, studied medicine, architecture, art, history, mythology, and worked on a lot of projects at once. It was during this time he discovered he could make organs in himself, more brains, more hearts, more kidneys to drink himself stupid. He made educational books and debate his knowledge with other scientists for several wonderful years. True, sometimes people who knew who he truly is asked for immortality and such from him, and depending on how much of an asshole they are, he either exploded them on sight, made them dinner, or watched them convulse and survive. From time to time, families of those people hunt him down and tried to kill him. They rarely succeeded, or if they do, their katana can't kill him, and he got to watch them gawk as his limbs grew at remarkable speed. Life gets boring when knowledge stops sparking his curiosity, and he retreated in a small estate under the woods. It was owned by a couple of amnesiac elders who thought of him as his lost grandson when he wandered there. They still count him as his grandson even after a year later, and Muzan is content on playing grandson, mostly doing nothing. The cult members still find him, probably because his demon's telling his whereabouts, but he doesn't mind much. As long as he didn't dirty the tatami with blood, Grandpa and Grandma wouldn't yell at him. And then a samurai named Tsujikuni Michikatsu came at him. Michikatsu twitched, apparently miffed at how cold Muzan's expression is, how cold and bored his red eyes are when he heard the man talk and what he wanted. Muzan smiled to Grandma, who served them tea, though his expression broke into something warm as Grandma pats his head. And be good with the handsome guest, won't you? When Grandma was out of earshot, he ignored how Michikatsu opened his mouth to talk, purposely sipping his tea while closing his eyes. Michikatsu twitched more, so he put his tea down, voice bored. You want to grow stronger than your twin brother? He asked, confirmed. Really? He is a demon slayer. Michikatsu bit out, trying very hard to stay still. The Demon Slayer Corps, an organization founded by the Ubuyashikis, his cousin family, had appeared, and apparently they are hellbent on killing him, hunting his demons one by one. He had wondered about his own family, but at the time one of his demons told him his family was slaughtered by rivaling clans some 20 years ago, he had gone numb. Sometimes he wanted to apologize to his cousin's family because they are cursed because of him. Cursed for generations and generations until he died. Tough luck, cousins. He doesn't know if he could die either. They can suffer together from afar, in family spirits and all. Muzan peered to his katana, observed how the samurai breathed, and snorted. What betrayal, he sighed, mockingly dramatic. A demon slayer asking to be demon, what tragedy. Michikatsu was very, very still, trying very, very hard not to scowl because of course he values his life in front of Muzan. Muzan tried hard not to snort again. Riling him up was so fun. Okay, Slayer, he agreed, I will make you the strongest yet. And he will. Those who mastered breathing technique are stronger. They can withstand a lot of his blood. I have but one condition. Michikatsu waited. Muzan smiled. It was not a nice smile. You have to kill me in the end. He loved his studies, he really does. He loved every invention humans made. He loved their happiness and silliness, their genuine curiosity. He loved human just as he loathed them. He loathed their greed, how he loathed their wars, how he loathed their stupidity. He would look at his reflection and something tiny in his brain said, you are a monster. It said, you are a wretched creature, causing all those deaths, turning a blind eye and humoring wretched ideals. If he is going to hell anyway, he thinks, just do it quickly. Anyone, just send him to hell already. Michikatsu can handle a lot of his blood. Muzan had gone slowly, giving bits by bits for Michikatsu's body to get used to it. But it was clear that he is far stronger than regular breath users. He transformed, as per the usual. His swordsmanship has sharpened and sharpened every time they sparred. Breath of Moon is breathtaking to see and face, and Muzan found himself enjoying himself in adrenaline more often than not. He gave a lot of blood for Michikatsu to convert whoever it is on from his own blood, in the end. It took nearly 8 of his total blood, but, no matter how powerful Michikatsu become, he didn't manage to kill him. Instead, Muzan discovered a whole lot of new tricks he could do for himself. Apparently he can grow tentacles far easier now. Tentacles with mouths, and blades, and new hearts mid-battle. Breath of Moon was amazing, but it could never slow the rate of his regeneration, which is terrifying in its own rights. Though Michikatsu's own regeneration is remarkable, it was still seconds slower than Muzan. He had been wanting to try to shapeshift into mythical creatures too, and he did so in his battle with Michikatsu. Sure, the Slayer turned demon is powerful, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, after days of battling and trying to subdue each other, Muzan was still the winner. What the fuck? Hissed Muzan to the dirt, absolutely horrified as he just reviewed the battle in his mind, realized the length of what he can do again. He thought he has grown out of this what the fuck phase, but obviously not. Not too far away from him, Michikatsu flipped him off, exhausted and totally mutilated. Michikatsu was a bitter bitch in defeat. After he was done regenerating himself, he disappeared. To God knows where. He hadn't cared too much, never did track his demons when they are off on a murder spree. He was a bit disappointed that he can't see his reaction on Muzan's branding of Michikatsu though, a tattooed kanji of one on each left side of his eyes. Muzan had given it to him because he was his first demon student, but for Michikatsu who hated defeat, it must be some kind of brand or reminder of defeat. His rage would be funny, but no matter. His demons are grown men regardless of their human age, including Michikatsu, and for Muzan it meant they handled their murder spree responsibilities on their own. He didn't count how many years has passed after that. Eventually, Grandma and Grandpa died. He digged them their graves himself, left Nakheim to include the house in her interdimensional labyrinth blood demon art to take care of it, and promptly wandered off some more. Muzan decided he wanted to update his knowledge on current science development since he had gone and rolled into university easily. A new branch of medicine, of toxins, has opened. Interested, he became close to his mentor there, a gentlewoman named Tameo. They would discuss poisons from animals and plants, break their components down, and combine them. The last one if only to humor Muzan. Life was moving again from Muzan. It was slow, but it was enjoyable. Still with the same assholes demanding immortality things, or if he's bored enough, he still came to bus cult gatherings to turn a few of them to demons, and a few of them to dinner. Demon Slayer Core never get a hold of him, and his demons are cutely loyal to him, choosing death than telling his whereabouts. Few well-placed praises, head pats, and cruel punishments do you wonders, apparently. So he was understandably shocked when one night, coming home from library, he was assaulted by a demon slayer with blazing red blade. "Where are your manners, Slayer?" Muzan snarled. The long-haired man in red Haori stayed silent and continued his assault. His cut stings like no other thing he ever felt. His regeneration slowed down considerably, which baffled him and scared him a bit. The Slayer was nimble, strong, slippery, blinding, and when he hits hard. It was like fighting rays of sunlight. His blade shines, and he could almost see lava trailing its swings. They burn his skin. He couldn't get a hold of him, and Muzan was left snarling and burning, scorching pain in his wake. He had wanted to die, yes, he thinks quietly, but not like this. He wanted to, at least say goodbye to Tameo. But, he thinks again, parrying the burning blade, homing for his neck with his hardened nails and replying with his dancing bladed tentacles. Maybe he did not get that kind of luxury after all. After all he has done. Maybe this is his time to die. This man, this Slayer, whoever he is, has rendered his regenerative abilities. He has burned his skin and wounded him like no others. He had burned his heart in a lucky stab, and he knew how the man is homing for another of his hearts. Like he could see where his hearts are. Not even Michikatsu was able to do that. It's hard to shape shifts into creatures with such wounds. Muzan pulled his bone from his mutilated right hand out, parrying his sword with his hardener bone as his hand grew. Too slow. The Slayer knew this too. In the end, Muzan slowly half-assed his efforts, tired already and wanting to die. The Slayer easily burned his remaining hearts, and Muzan barely registered the pain as he was high on adrenaline, trying to parry and regenerate as much as he can while still, hopefully, look serious. Finally, someone who can kill him. Finally, he can rest. Finally, he is getting too bored already, and lives vaporizes when he is bored. Muzan widened his eyes when the Slayer's blade was ready to decapitate his head. His reaction time was purposely slowed just so it's enough to decapitate him while Muzan dodged half-heartedly. Muzan closed his eyes and sighed almost in relief to his upcoming death. His entire body is burning. His wounds are aching. Death isn't supposed to be like this. Muzan opened his eyes, this time genuinely shocked to see the red blade has stopped to graze his neck. His red eyes met that of the Slayer's, then, still shocked. "You're a decent human being," the Slayer said, sounding confused himself. "What? I don't kill decent human beings." "What?" The Slayer stepped back then, offering his hand for Muzan to get up. "What the fuck?" After the battle, after Muzan was minutely shocked as he waited for himself to regenerate properly, and the Slayer had stayed and watched. They talked. So this is Tsujakuni Yoriichi, Michikatsu's twin, which he wanted to surprise. Breath of the Sun, Muzan guessed, from how his blade moved. Almost a mirror to his twin, but not. Far more powerful and heavy than Michikatsu's swings could ever be. And it nulls his regeneration almost useless. Annoyed, he asked, "How do you even know where I am?" Yoriichi shrugged. His face, Muzan learned, is naturally expressionless. "A demon told me." Red eyes squinted. His demons are awfully loyal, though. Describe it. One horn, yellow eyes, checkered skin, demon blood art of poison needles. Muzan was quiet, reviewing his brains for memories of such demon, and after the fifth sweep of his memory, he is pretty sure none of his demons are like that. He told as much, voice genuinely puzzled, regardless of his stone-cold expression. "I have no such demon." It was Yoriichi's turn to be puzzled then, as he must sense Muzan's genuine confusion. "There is rise of demon activities these past decades." Muzan stared blankly at Yoriichi. Yoriichi stared back blankly. Muzan broke the staring contest first, holding his own grudge to grumble against his tea. Instead, he forced himself to think. He hadn't do shit for the past decade, though. It was, as Nakheim put it delicately, his vacation, unproductive years. Late Kikyo bluntly said this is Muzan-sama's lazy years. But then if not him, who? Michikatsu, Muzan realized. I was his mentor. He has almost ninth of my blood. Michikatsu is building his own army, Muzan thinks. But why? Does he want to take over the world or something? Yoriichi, Muzan realized, looks pinched. For any other people, he was still the perfect picture of calm. But Muzan could see the minute twitch of his facial muscles, like he doesn't know how to react exactly. Understandable, because if Muzan have a twin who turned people into demons while he somehow becomes Demon Slayer, he'd be confused too. Maybe. Or he doesn't care much. He's you Slayers' problem, Muzan said, grouchy from his aching limbs. He's your student. He's your twin brother. You created him. Muzan didn't think this man could be pissed. But there it is, a frown. He raised an eyebrow, voice sounding bored. And I did what he asked of me. Without payment, no less. Apparently he tried to kill me by sending you my way. Why don't you kill me? You're a decent human being, Yoriichi said, not missing a beat. Muzan snarled. I'm a demon, you fool. Yoriichi shrugged, as if saying whatever you can do with it. And say, a decent demon being. He was pretty sure there was something wrong with Yoriichi's head somewhere. Some screw loose maybe. No wonder Michikatsu naturally pissed at him every day, every time, every little mention of him. They aren't made for each other. Yoriichi followed him. He wasn't obnoxious enough to follow him when he had night classes and researched with Tameo, but Yoriichi still followed him. Muzan was determined to ignore him, though. He will probably be gone taking care of other demons, right? But after 2 weeks, the man still following him like a puppy, Muzan snapped. He dragged the man with a force he was sure breaking his wrist, and dragged him down to a nearby tea house. Muzan needed tea to be civil. Even though he wondered why he even need to be civil, King of Demons and all those fancy titles the court gave him. Don't you want to go out? Muzan-sama, Nakime had asked him one day, apparently boredom rotting her mind just as his. Don't you want to go crazy apeshit sometimes? I do now, Nakime, he thinks, sipping his tea, particularly including snapping this son idiot's neck in half. Do you have no other demons to hunt? Other things to do than stalking me? A pause. No. Muzan squinted at him, a glare that would render his demons to submission. What kind of demon slayer are you, taking a vacation from hunting demons? I was kicked out of Demon Slayer Corps. Muzan snorted. The guy must be joking. The silence stretched. Muzan looked at his black eyes and realized with dawning confusion that Yoriichi was serious. The Corps was ready to kick someone as strong as this guy because his brother has become a demon. A guy who made the sun itself his blade. Humans. Ridiculous, greedy, scared things. It's fine. What? It's fine. He repeated, tone still monotone. Apparently he had said that out loud. I heard you the first time. Yoriichi was looking at him strangely then, and Muzan is ignoring it by sipping his tea again. You're a kind one, the Slayer said, soft enough to be carried out by the wind. But it was loud and clear for Muzan's sensitive ears. He almost choked. Almost. Choking was beneath Muzan though, and he set his cup of tea down, delicately. His red slitted eyes appeared, his face contorting to another snarl with elongated fangs as he glared at Yoriichi. Do not test my patience, Slayer. What is it do you want? Not bothered or flinch, Yoriichi replied, you know where my brother is. Indeed. They still have a telepathic connection, though it was weak as Michikatsu actively blocked him out. Blood still sings to blood, though. His. Tell me where he is. Of course. Stupid twin brothers. Muzan closed his eyes and concentrated on his bonds to his demons, to Michikatsu in particular. It was not surprising, but still upsetting, when his bond with him was hazy, like there's a fog surrounding him. He can't detect or see anything. This usually means he's away from Muzan, too far away, but it could also mean the other side is trying to cut him off. Now he could only give a vague direction on where to go. South, he said, once opening his eyes again. Yoriichi looks on blankly. That's the only thing I can give you. Your beloved brother blocked me out. Scoffed, as if Michikatsu could do that for long. Now scram, Slayer, and never return. Consider this payment of your idiocy to spare my life. The Slayer looks amused, folding his hands under his red haori, definitely not going to go away soon, to Muzan's exasperation. You want to die, though. You gave up on our battle. Why? Deep breaths, Muzan, deep breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you really want to die, why don't you just stand under sunlight? Fuck this guy, he decided. Muzan shot forward. Not enough time for Yoriichi to duck, and he easily feeds his blood into the Slayer's bloodstream. Yoriichi fell to the tatami, choking and convulsing, his Hanafuda earrings clinking as he struggled. Muzan watched with bemusement and satisfaction, rolling him off in equal measure. To the user of Breath of the Sun, how will his blood, the very antithesis of his breath, react? Will Yoriichi just fall dead, in coma due to contradiction? He watched, sitting back down and sipping his tea serenely, a total contrast with the sound of thrashing and choking in their little, private tea room. Yoriichi Tsujikuni did turn into a demon. Unlike his brother, however, he did not undergo any transformation except his elongated fangs and nails. Muzan was sure he feeds enough blood in that short time, but as if his blood was burned by the sun, it held no effect whatsoever to Yoriichi. No bloodlust, no crazed looks or losing memories. He is still the same, expressionless slayer of the sun. What the fuck? Muzan thinks, watching the demon slayer turn demon actually sunbathing on his porch. Sunbathing. It seems like the universe is determined to not let Muzan pass the what the fuck stage of his life. And Yoriichi Tsujikuni did not leave. Muzan was fed up enough that he battled Yoriichi to shoo him off, like shooing a very violent chicken out. Yoriichi was defeated repeatedly only because he isn't used to his newfound strength and speed. Seeing him fumble was fun, and slamming him into nearby and through walls was enough to make him grin in glee. After the first several battles though, Yoriichi learned, and he learned fast. He returned to his feet and proceeded to give Muzan another beating of his life. Anonymously they agreed it's kind of a spar, a very deadly spar, but a spar nonetheless. Eventually, Muzan decided Yoriichi is like a mold. No matter how he scrubbed it off he would always come back. Or a weed. Or cockroach. The point is, he would let the man around. Besides, it's not like he ever did shoo his demons away when they visited. Besides, Muzan wouldn't say it out loud, but Yoriichi is a lost man. Muzan didn't realize it at the start, but the man was downright suicidal. When they sparred, considering Yoriichi is a demon now, Muzan was dead serious, and far, far more ruthless. And even then Yoriichi did not afraid to sacrifice his limbs for a win. As if he had nothing more to live, except a spark of determination and purpose to kill his older brother. But right now Yoriichi would win for sure. Michikatsu did not win against Muzan, but Yoriichi did, and thus Michikatsu would be ultimately defeated. And Yoriichi doesn't want that, Muzan realized. That's why he doesn't seek Michikatsu. He wanted to kill him, but also, he wanted to die in the process. A stupid honorable man. Between him and his brother, who is hellbent on defeating him, it seems like Muzan has a penchant for picking up idiots. Muzan was sure Yoriichi was not going to leave. He had made himself a permanent resident of his current house. Even Muzan considered rolling him in education just for the hell of it. They don't talk much, mostly bickering before one of them snaps and breaks something. But Muzan understands Yoriichi and Yoriichi understands Muzan, much he loathed to admit. For Muzan, life is going too boring and he is desperately escaping it, oftentimes with bloodbath, which made him loathe life more at the end of it. And for Yoriichi, life has lost its meaning but one in the form of his rogue brother, and he is willing to wait for as long as it needed to end life together with him. But one day, Yoriichi disappeared. Again, Muzan doesn't keep track of his demons too much, they are adults on their own. So he didn't even bat an eye and continued on with his life. Because for once, something has happened in his life. Tameo has gotten sick. And she has not gotten better. Bedridden, her fever ups and downs for weeks, she is hardly able to eat anything, and her skin pales to paper and her body thinning to skeleton. It was as if he was looking at himself years ago. Muzan also discovered that by far, he is the only one who visited her. They both never talked about family, out of respect for each other's privacy, but it's clear that Tameo is also alone. In her quiet house, he did not see any indication of other human beings living with her, and traces of what he did in her house was there for days. So, not even a servant. He's getting sentimental himself, Muzan thinks. Normally, he wouldn't bat an eye to any sick humans he knew. All his demons were turned simply by his bored whims. If he can turn people into mindless savage murderers, he had decided long ago, at least he can be somewhat fair about it. Not only picking the sickly ones or the rich ones. Somewhat. But Tameo is a really kind woman. This might be his sentimental emotions making an appearance unexpectedly, but Tameo is by far the only one who managed to keep up with his wit, his curiosity, even humoring his morbid and less than morally acceptable ideas. Tameo is, and Muzan won't ever admit it out loud, fun to be with. In no way he would ever let Tameo die if he can help it. And so, turn Tameo into demon he did. Apparently, Tameo had taken a liking to call him Muzan-sama. In fact, it was the first thing she said after she woke up, all healthy and every inch a demon. Tameo knew it did nothing but piss him off, coming from her, his mentor. She took great joy in calling him like that every time. And since he likes Tameo, he lets her be. Muzan thinks it's a way of her revenge that he made her unable to taste sunlight and become an abomination who needed human meat to survive, no matter how grateful she is. Despite his annoyance, Muzan privately thinks, good then. They can be salty about never being able to enjoy Hanabi together. Nothing happened after that. As usual, he didn't count how many years have passed in his life. They moved together, traveling around Japan and studying a lot of things. Sure, it was mostly things he already knew, but having a constant companion like Tameo makes all the difference. Her mind provides a new point of view and other information he had missed before. During this less than boring time, Yoriichi has returned. This time, without his Hanafuda earrings. Perhaps he made a family, or found a successor. Muzan didn't ask, Yoriichi didn't explain. Yoriichi simply fits as a third person in their little traveling group without explanation. To Muzan's irritation, Yoriichi warmed up almost instantly with Tameo. They are both partners in looking at Muzan with "This is this what you call morals?" stare, or in Tameo's case, "It's more like I did not accept you being messy and Muter's look." Since Yoriichi only needs a month or so of hibernation and doesn't need human flesh or blood to survive, he is the only one who remains straight with his morals. Tameo would be swayed with research and knowledge at the end of the blood rainbow, sometimes, and Muzan decided he would conveniently forget about morals once he is too bored. Yoriichi stepped to the clearing then, wind swaying his long hair gently and the moon shining on his face, paling them. He is using that look on him, Muzan thinks, and he threw a femur boredly from his bloody stone altar, done chewing the flesh. It wasn't me. Really now. Muzan pointed a manicured index finger to the woods, to the sound of faint screams. Blinking slowly and innocently at Yoriichi who is coming closer, he nodded. This is their doings, I'm just taking some meat, really. Yoriichi, never deterred by his acting, slapped the back of his head. Muzan hissed and crushed Yoriichi's fingers to mush in retaliation. Yoriichi, still undeterred by pain and still with his disappointed look, proceeds to drag Muzan away from the bloody clearing. By Muzan's collar, the nerve of someone who can beat him, the Demon King, to the ground, people. It was only the fact that Muzan was happy enough from chewing some eyeballs earlier that he let Yoriichi drags him. Tameo-san would love to comment on how messy you are, Yoriichi dryly said. Muzan glanced at his clothes, soaked to the skin with blood. Even his normally smooth hair is caked with blood. Tameo would go batshit at this, in her creepy-ish way. Spoil sport, he said in the end, deadpan and resigned to his scolding. And Yoriichi would not hesitate to beat him down if he ever dared to follow his whims and slaughter a village for his amusement. He doesn't care if that village constantly produced the best pickpockets and underground criminals. No, Yoriichi only cared when Muzan decided to slaughter them. They would dance in a deadly spar through the night, and by the time the sun has risen Muzan has forgotten all his bloodlust born of boredom and only want to sleep for the entire week, which he does. They don't do this often, because aiding Tameo in her ever-growing research about poison and genetics managed to distract him from boredom. It helps that once in a blue moon he can sneak away from Yoriichi, too. But when they do fight, their battles are beautifully devastating. It was the norm that they quickly move away to another city after their fight, because demon slayers would come sniffing trails of their battle. Muzan thinks this might be Yoriichi's way of brooding revenge. He did curse the slayer to eternity and turn him to become something he had sworn to destroy, after all. By chasing him around and being his moral compass somewhat, Yoriichi has his revenge. For eternity. Joy. At least he's a decently deadly distraction. Muzan found Akaza as a half-mad human, attracted by the smell of blood from his slaughter in what Muzan assumed was his dojo. Even as a human, he had this crazy look on his face that told Muzan of psychotic murders. After all, the man did slaughter everyone with his bare hands, punching holes through people's chests with his fists. Humans dropping like broken red splattered dolls around Akaza. And so Muzan thinks, what better way to appreciate his martial prowess than to enable the man for more murders, with more firepower for his martial arts, too. Win-win. He expected the man to be completely amnesiac after his transformation, but not to the point that he forget his name completely. Most of his demons still retained fragments of their memories after their transformations, including their names, not a blank slate like Akaza was. Puzzled, but still thinking up a name, Muzan had said, Akaza. The newly made Akaza had beamed. It was one of Tameo's cat's names, that orange pudgy cat. Not knowing his true namesake, Akaza is instead a true puppy. Akaza barked, talked, a lot. He asked things about Muzan and demons and sometimes himself, and he took his words to the deepest of his hearts, hanging by them like a lifeline. So you're my savior, Akaza said, flitting his eyes from the littered corpses in him. He seems to be thinking. After Akaza's barrage of questions stops and Muzan was done explaining and answering. Muzan's answers consist of a lot of I don't know because he really doesn't know shit about this man. He was just attracted to the smell of blood like children were attracted to candies. Akaza asks Muzan about his own background. He really doesn't know anything. Muzan hummed. Perhaps. Akaza flexed his fingers, staring at them. And you are? I became strong because of you. Not exactly. But would he tell that? Then I'm indebted to you for eternity. I shall do my best to serve you. I shall strive to be stronger and stronger, Muzan-sama. Muzan blinked. Too bright, he quietly complained in his mind. Are those sparkles? After Akaza was clean from blood and properly dressed by a fussing Tameo, Yoriichi also treated him exactly like a puppy. Akaza was shy at first of head pats from Muzan-sama's friends, but he quickly warmed up to Yoriichi after their first spar. It looks like Akaza became Yoriichi's fanboy or something. The faster Yoriichi knocked Akaza out, the more spirited Akaza became. And despite the swordsman, Muzan gave Akaza more and more blood until he wasn't defeated in the first 30 seconds by Yoriichi. Muzan had looked smug when Akaza was finally able to judo flip Yoriichi several hundred meters away, to Yoriichi's amusement. Akaza had then appointed himself as Muzan's #1 servant after that, in which Tameo giggled and Muzan had given the man an appreciation head pat. Muzan could still imagine the ensuing sparkles and grin Akaza gave to him that day when he closed his eyes. It was that bright and that traumatic. And so their travel around Japan continued, this time with one more member in their ragtag group. Not too long after that, Muzan found a cult, and as per Muzan's standard protocol, he hunts them down and proceeds to pick a few for dinner, and then a few more to be demons. He would then sit down calmly as he watched the carnage unfolds and then mutilated some body parts for him to bring back. Nice to know he doesn't have to eat 1 week-old corpses which Tameo insisted are food. Old age eyeballs didn't pop the right way in his mouth, and if they are preserved they have the weird taste of chemicals. These ones, however, are food. They are succulent, sweet, and fresh. Sometimes they taste like something the human had eaten before, like this one, tasted like alcohol and fish. Sushi. It sounds like he's talking about fruits, so moving on. As he was sitting down on the altar like a newly summoned demon, chewing on a human thigh, he locked eyes with a blonde man. That weird blonde man with rainbow eyes, who smiled and stood still like some sort of creepy doll the entire time he watched his cult friends be slaughtered, is Dauma. Dauma ignored his cult friends even when they begged for help in front of his face, resolutely staring and smiling at Muzan. If Dauma hadn't blinked, Muzan would have thought he was a statue. Dauma is a very creepy human. He did not react at all when Muzan stabbed his thumb to his wrist, in mind. At this point they still are staring at each other. Dauma simply transformed, not breaking eye contact, with no convulsing or choking scene. The realization of being a demon had come to him like information of the changing weather, and Dauma had happily followed Muzan in silence. He smiled the entire time. For Muzan, Dauma is a creepily handsome doll. He just exists there, quiet, and when he talks he usually says something friendly, a very creepy or downright shitty joke, or say something polite. But his expressions are very fake. It's like he's a life-size doll equipped with friendly dialogues and crack psychopathic puns. Even Yoriichi is unnerved by Dauma. For Muzan, Dauma is fine because Muzan lives and thrives with weirdos his entire life. His demons are all weirdos, in one way or another. There's this guy who ate origamis and blood for fun, another one who loved to make lanterns of eyes. Akaza loved the cleanliness and cleaning in general. Muzan doesn't know why. Even less on why Akaza would specifically hum kabuki songs while he pulls out weeds and the Shogun's anthem when he sweeps the floor. Nakai may look normal, but she loved to paint using blood, insisted to make and discover wonders of red. But all her paintings are red. Just red, no matter how she insisted how many different shades of reds on her painting. Tameo is Tameo and Yoriichi is Yoriichi, enough said. And Dauma is in his own league of weird, sure, but Muzan is totally fine with that. As my thanks, I will give my heart to you, Muzan-sama. In which Dauma promptly dig a hole in his own chest with his bare hands, pull his heart out in a spray of blood, and knelt in front of Muzan. He is grinning and he tilted his head to let his eyes sparkle rainbow, which means this is his idea of a joke. Akaza twitched violently due to the mess. Tameo and Yoriichi looked at Muzan in accusation. Of what the hell did you teach your children? Look, it's not Muzan who taught Dauma his sense of humor, though, he developed it himself. Muzan, ignoring the 3, had simply said, I already have 5 of those, Dauma. Ah, I see. Then I shall give you 10. Please don't, Dauma-kun, Yoriichi had said, and fortunately Dauma had listened. For Akaza and Tameo, however, Dauma is trash can. Akaza because he downright loathed Dauma's existence in general, and Tameo because she could infuse whatever leftover of her toxin experiment in human carcass or corpse and Dauma will eat that. His inability to feel pain is very useful as it put Tameo's mind at ease. It's not even his blood demon art, he isn't even a gourmet, but Dauma has a belief that whoever humans and remnant of humans get eaten by him and Muzan are thus saved from this shitty world. Muzan draws the lines on bones, because Muzan is a lazy ass who refused to do more than the bare minimum in chewing and refused to choke while savoring his food. But Dauma will make bones smoothies and drink that if he can. As it is now, he just chews them like popsicles. Muzan wondered if Dauma intentionally strengthened his teeth for that. Then one of his brains would provide a memory of Dauma chewing glass and steel container to get the preserved human fingers inside. And yes, he probably strengthened them. Tameo took great joy in Dauma the trash can. Of course, she has been curious about what poisons and combinations of poisons she could make, but she has been hindered by environmental hazards. Dauma is happy to help expand Tameo's curiosity, not caring about said hazards anymore. Akaza rained down his violent outburst when Dauma is on an experiment with Tameo, but he will pulverize Dauma's head to blood in their garden. When Muzan asked, Akaza replied, he just pissed me off, Muzan-sama. He doesn't, the bastard has no value whatsoever. He's empty, and he pretended like he isn't. When I see him I just had to punch him. Dauma, with reformed head, merely widens his smile. You're such a good dog, Akaza-kun. If you're a woman I'd even say you're cute. Dauma lost his head again in a second after that comment, to Yoriichi's disapproval. They had continued trying to kill each other until Muzan had to physically separate them with his tentacles and assign them to different tasks. Over time, Yoriichi also took charge of separating them. Muzan privately thinks it's like owning a dog and a cat who fights each other a lot. They do learn to be peaceful in Muzan's presence though, so that's an improvement. And thus, the group continued their journey, with one more weirdo in tow. Naturally, Muzan met Michikatsu again. You see, when you live as long as him and have a shitty sense of time as him, how's the Ubuyashiki, my cousins? Didn't their eldest die of heart failure months ago? A pregnant pause, before Nakheim replied, no one of the Ubuyashiki died of heart failure since 15 years ago, Muzan-sama. You will eventually accept that you will meet the same people or descendants of the same people you have met years ago, one way or another. This world is small, no one dared venture outside of the ocean. Tragically, the Emperor is a coward and fool to not ever try. This world is small, so of course, Muzan and Michikatsu met again. What Muzan didn't expect, however, was how he was ambushed by 10 or so demons, plus Michikatsu himself. Now Muzan is no slouch. He is a nerd, maybe, but he can lift his own weight in a fight. It's just he doesn't have a Nichiren blade at his side, and these 10 demons are far more skilled than usual hungry demons. They reek of human blood, each one of them. The reek of slaughter, powered up, if you will. The battle was amusing at the start. They are still such easy targets for Muzan, who is used to Yoriichi, the embodiment of everything a deadly fight can offer. His hardened hair would strike them and line them up like meat, and Muzan is happy to gauge their eyes out and use his bones as projectiles to pin them to trees. But they come back again and again, and mind, there are 10 of them. With Michikatsu, the fucking asshole coward, who will use any distractions provided by these demons to cut Muzan down. In the end, pulling a spine off of a demon after decapitating it, Muzan was faced with Michikatsu and one stray demon. Bloodied, definitely pissed, and full of wounds that sting his blood and nose, Muzan stalked to his first disciple. Fancy to meet you too, Michikatsu, Muzan began, because his mother never taught him to be rude asses like these Tsujakunis. I see you still can't kill me. He grinned, bloody teeth and red eyes shining under the moonlight. Michikatsu flicked his blade, the only indication that Muzan did annoy him with his remarks. We shall see, he said, walking slowly, confidently, to where Muzan stood. Much as he loathed to admit it, Michikatsu would win this one. These cuts aren't necessarily painful, but they are restricting as they are laced with poison. Muzan's body is stiff and his eyesight is starting to blur, and Michikatsu had, somehow, become faster than before. In any other situation Muzan would be proud, he would praise Michikatsu for his progress. But this is a life or death situation and what? Since when did Muzan not want to die? Since when did living become a bit bearable, even with full realization of his sins and conscious murders? Since when did the ignorance of his demon's manslaughter become easier to the point that he had accepted it, and was even content with it? With what he has right now? Since when did his consciousness feel this? Light of the world, who took the burden from him? Didn't Michikatsu just fulfill his end of the bargain now, even with dirty means as it is? Pain blossomed in his chest then. He looked down to see Michikatsu's Nichiren cut to one of his hearts, left atrium whole right ventricle heart valve tear poison to vena unsalvageable, and left lung tear intermediate lung failure. Muzan is thankful he equipped his doctor brain in his head right now. It has an automatic professional doctor response to kick him out of his crisis enough to hone his hand to Michikatsu's throat, forcing the man to jump away. Deflected his breath of the moon with whips from his back. Muzan struggled to stand up. Listeria poison, he could feel, creeping into his bloodstream from his heart, and he coordinated his second brain to independently replace his heart and took control of his bloodstream, half of his spine, to quickly flow them out of his wounds. Taking a page out of Warrior Tales, Muzan blabbed out mid-battle. From his blabs, he earned 1 Michikatsu's aggression, 2 decapitated left hand and right foot, hard to regenerate with so many poisons in his bloodstream, 3 Michikatsu's monologue of saving the world by conquering it. Humans are weak. They are created to suffer from such weakness. I shall free them of their weakness and despair, and I will rule atop all of them. Being demons, they will be controlled. Everyone will have their peace and power to prove and protect their justice. Michikatsu said in the end after he recalled his travels and see a lot of poverty, war, suffering demons, orphans, and whatnot. And, honestly, what? Just what? Muzan didn't teach him philosophy as his mentor, sure, but he didn't think the kid would be this naive. But again Muzan surprised himself by holding his tongue and not voicing his thought. Michikatsu finally knelt in front of him, a scowling bloody mess demon king. As I expected, you did not agree, said Michikatsu, flat, his 6 eyes looking at him with no emotion. I have been many things in my life. Muzan bared his teeth, smiling, blood dripping from his lips. But a fool is not one of them, boy. Even after all this time, you are still a weeping boy seeking empty justice for your own, and when you did not find it, you blame it on the world and forced your way with childish tantrums. Before a pissed-off Michikatsu could kill him, Muzan's hovering tentacle strikes Michikatsu's neck first, feeding more blood to him in spite. And because it's the only thing Muzan can think that could cancel his final moon breathing stance. What? He thinks Muzan didn't notice the inch shift of his blade, the minute change of pace of his breathing. Try again, Michikatsu. Michikatsu drops his Nichiren and writhes in pain. While he does that, Muzan quickened his foot regeneration and forced himself to stand up and get out of this place. The sun will rise in 1 hour. Michikatsu will rise in even less time than that, and Muzan has to move fast. Muzan remembered running through the pain of poison choking his lungs, remembered honing his nose through the poison to find his current hide, and the last thing he remembered is Akaza's startled look morphed to a fierce snarl, and then he collapsed. The sky was dark and he could see the moon when he woke up, staring at the ceiling of his room. Muzan could feel his futon behind him, and slowly he sat up. He already registered Tamayo's presence beside him. Apparently she's putting down herbs and old bandages soundlessly. She didn't ask what happened, and he's grateful for that. Muzan is angry. No, he's downright pissed, as his brain recalled his fight with Michikatsu and what he implied. He's also berating himself for being an enabler to Michikatsu and his newly megalomaniac ambition. Why couldn't he just think of better things than feeding more blood? Why couldn't he just let himself die then? Is he that pathetic to be afraid of death now? Muzan doesn't know if he could speak clearly and not lash out right now. Tamayo really knows him well. Coming to a conclusion and a plan, Muzan closed his eyes. Through his telepathic bond to his demons, he reached Hitomi, one of his demons with a particular demon blood art of mind communication and mind control unlike his own. He told the spooked demon to contact every demons in several locations too far from his reach to go to Nadagumo on a full moon, trying very hard to keep his mind voice level, but it seems like he failed by how Hitomi screeched a bit. Next, he contacted Nakaim to meet him in his current hide. Then, he concentrated further. He reached every demon he can reach, those far away or not, and Muzan registered how Tamayo stilled as he opened his connection to her. Dimly he also recognized how Dauma's and Akaza's quiet bicker in the garden recedes, and Yoriichi's footsteps in the hall stop. Mount Nadagumo, full moon. You will come or you will be hunted and face an agonizing death. Surprisingly, even Yoriichi understands when he wants to be left alone. The man simply takes Muzan's silent request for peace as a time for him to hibernate. 3 days of waiting for the full moon were spent by Muzan recovering, mostly sleeping, eating corpse-fused medicine, and then going back to sleep. Those wisteria poisons are a bitch to be flushed out, but he and Tamayo already worked for a combination of herbs to thaw that a few months ago thankfully. His house is quiet and Muzan is silently grateful for Dauma's and Akaza's understanding of his condition. Or maybe they're just plain scared, that's a possibility too. Nakaim arrived the night before the meeting, and Muzan just feeds her a drip of her blood, to her quiet surprise. The 6 of them moved to Mount Nadagumo at night and settled deep within the forest, nearly at the top. He ordered Nakaim to activate her blood art until it reached all of the mountain's region and outskirts, and ordered her to take any demons who stepped into the mountain into her interdimensional fortress. It wasn't until 15 minutes of waiting that he had all of his demons, 75 of them and then some additions he expected, kneeling in rows and rows in front of him, inside Nakaim's fortress. Even Yoriichi and Tameo knelt too, even if they both do it more for amusement and curiosity. Muzan honestly didn't mind if they chose to sit beside him on the platform. But this is all right. Some of you have dared to betray me, he said, quietly gleeful in his demon's frightened surprise to realize that a petite girl in flower kimono is actually their creator. Insufferable, ungrateful ingrates, he spat, and I would like to show all of you how merciful I am to them. Muzan caught one who trembled, one he doesn't remember turning himself, and his tentacles caught her, hauling her up in her neck as she thrashed and cried. Quiet, girl. And she did quiet, significantly, to whimpers. Now tell me, why would you follow that man and betray me? Between hiccups, she apologized. Between sobs, she begs that she doesn't mean to betray him, and Muzan put a show of listening to her in pity, and started to lower her down to the ground. He lowered his grip on her neck and she growled, breaking free and grinning in triumph. As expected of bad actors, you have no ambition, she sneered. Kokishibu-sama was right. Your power is wasted on a weakling like you. Kokishibu-sama will rule this world to bring salvation to all of us, and you will be slain by him, you weakling. Then the fool actually dared to jump and stretch out her blood demon art by the wild strings of her kimono, homing to Muzan. He didn't even blink when Dauma cut them down, her strings, her head, and her torso, and Muzan let the doll gnaw at her remains as he returned to kneel. The bloody mess made Akaza beside Dauma twitch, but otherwise, he was quiet and bowed his head down. Muzan let Dauma eat her bones in peace, letting the crunches of bones grinding to pieces in his mouth echo in the quiet, horrifying atmosphere. At the same time, he mulled over her words. Indeed, he didn't try to be cruel lately. He's bored of it. His demons hadn't increased in number, cumulatively they decreased even, what with Yoriichi hunting him down. And maybe Yoriichi finally affects his morals too much if his demons manage to think of him as weak. Muzan had no doubt there are a few other of his own demons who also think the same. Do you think of me as a fool? Muzan eventually asked. Do you really believe in her prattle? A pause, before he channeled his chilling rage into his voice. Or do you think by staying quiet you would get out of this alive? His tentacles reached two of Michikatsu's, now Kokishibu's, demons, and a few of them jumped away to the depth of Nakaim's labyrinth. Those, Nakaim redirected them straight to Dauma's jaw and Akaza's fist, a bloody mess for the front row demons who trembled in fear. The ones whom Muzan personally made demon kept their head bowed deeper, while those of Michikatsu's gave up struggling or begging, began honing for his head. Surprisingly, some of his own demons also attacked him, probably in the same belief as to the demon girl earlier. Between Nakaim, Akaza, Dauma, and himself, they managed to make an impressive rain of red on the whole wooden floor. Muzan almost regretted it when Tameo looked stone-cold pissed because of splatters of blood on her hair and kimono. Seeing Yoriichi deadpans and staring ahead was worth it though. Now, Muzan said, extending 150 tendrils of tentacles to stab each one of his demons excluding Tameo, and Yoriichi, if you dare to speak of me or Kokishibu you shall die. He added a new drip of blood to them to strengthen their connection and their thoughts to Muzan, plus a curse that if they dare to even speak his name or Kokishibu, they will explode instantly. A memory of Kokishibu's appearance and skills is also given, to let them know what to watch for. A tattoo mark of a tiny red crescent moon appeared on where he had stabbed them, a claiming mark. Muzan waited until they stopped choking and back to their kneeling position. If you see any demons who do not bear the same mark on you fighting a demon slayer, you should fight that demon off the slayer. Bring that demon away from the slayer, and kill them swiftly. Do not harm the slayer along with the fight. Startled, Yoriichi looked at Muzan, but Muzan ignored him. In doing so, I would grant you with even more of my blood. I will behead you myself if you dare lie to me about this. Because Muzan could see some contempt and confusion in his demons, he continued in a chilling voice, I have spared your life. I have gifted you more of my blood. Do you mean to tell me you cannot fight a demon while fending off a mere human at the same time? Do you mean to tell me you can't even outrun a human? It's unfair, he knows. Some of the slayers are tough, especially with their Nichiren and their breathing technique. But Muzan liked his demons with high quality than quantity. If they can't do this then they can die. And if Muzan ordered this because Michikatsu chose to be a bitch by completely blocking their telepathy connection and declaring war on him, nobody needs to know if Muzan is replying it in kind. Perhaps I should have killed all of you, then. By his musing, he saw all protests die down in his demon's expressions, only complete obedience, and a bit resignation. Good, good. I expect good news to come. Nakime recognized parting words when she heard one, and she strums her biwa. At once, his demons are out of the interdimensional fortress. Yoriichi, Muzan, Dauma, Akaza, and Tameo are the only one who remains. Akaza, Dauma, Muzan said, mildly pleased to see the both of them snap to attention instantly. Find me blue spider lily. Find information about it. I suspect it's a herb, possibly a flower, but it could be gems, animals, or something else entirely. Do not return until you find information on it. Dauma, do not get distracted. I will know. While Dauma was slightly miffed on being called out of his plans to laze around and develop his cult for his personal food and entertainment, Akaza frowned and looked ready to protest because he doesn't want to leave Muzan. He knows Akaza can work it out alone, though, so he left him be. As a parting gift, he feeds both of them with more of his blood, adding Kanji Moon 2 and Moon 3 respectively on Dauma's and Akaza's left eyes. I will be in contact. Again, Nakime strums her biwa and the both of them disappeared. Tameo, Muzan said, stepping down the stair and ignoring her slightly pissed off expression when she raised her eyebrow at him. Ever wonder how did humans turn to demons? Think it's reversible. Tameo's violet eyes lit up with a small curve of a smile on her face. Already ahead of Muzan and researching those. Muzan knew he will be run through the ground for research by her like his university days, again. But well, with Tameo, he knew this will be nothing but fruitful. Michikatsu can do nearly everything when he puts his mind into it. That was an understatement. Scratch that. Michikatsu is an amazing, terrifying person. In 20 years after their battle, Tsujikuni clan has gained fame as one of the most powerful clan in Japan. Among with their fame is the circulating rumor that the clan has used black magic or black priests to eliminate their rivals to reach the top. They aren't wrong per se, just nobody knows that a literal demon is behind the clan's back, cherry-picking important figures of rivaling clans to kill. It took, to Muzan's observation, a lot of information to decide who to kill in the hot mess people referred as government clan politics behind the shogun's back. As a stranger peeking in, Muzan would have clapped if he isn't wary of the implication. Michikatsu is eliminating every clans who didn't bow to the Tsujikuni, and they are doing it beautifully. A kidnapping here, a stolen treasure there, a bit blood here, and a small civil war, and suddenly, Tsujikuni clan has the shogun's favor now, even the current clan head becoming a member of shogun's advisors. Sure, the other clans would probably investigate the suspicious deaths, but if they can't find the body, then what can they do? If they only manage to find the remains, isn't it safe to assume a wild animal is the one responsible? Hunting trip gone wrong is common, after all. What happens in the forest stay in the forest, who knows what actually happened? It's not like demons are real, right? On that note, with Tsujikuni's clan position, Michikatsu even managed to cut out Demon Slayer Korra's funds. Muzan heard this from one of his best spies, Jayako, since he actually managed to turn himself to a fish, and then getting sold as an exotic magical art fish, moving from one rich pond to another rich pond. Hearing things is his forte. How he did it without getting burned by sunlight, only God knows. Maybe he is truly magical. Jayako reported that Demon Slayer Corps are initially funded, following an extreme spike in demon activities, murders, and overall bloodbath more than 200 or 300 years ago. But since demon activities has lessened and technology moved forward, a lot of the upper echelons doesn't believe in demons anymore. Coupled with Tsujikuni's clan head insistent on abandoning the Corps altogether, the Demon Slayer Corps hardly get any funds. Muzan promptly sent Jayako to sniff on the Ubuyashikis' funds then, confirming they still have support from Swordsmith Village and more than a few small but locally influential clans. Muzan sighed a bit in relief. At least they will survive for another 100 or so years. While listening to his demons' reports about Michikatsu spiked his anxiety and made his fingers itchy to punch things. Muzan hadn't do anything to stop him. Mostly because it's troublesome, true. The work it takes to derail Michikatsu's machinations and covers his tracks so the humans and Michikatsu's demons won't notice him is outright ridiculous. It doesn't help that Muzan doesn't know the bigger picture. He doesn't have enough information for that. Sure, maybe Michikatsu wants to become the shogun. And then what? Which village does he want to obliterate first? Which clans would agree, which would oppose? What are Michikatsu's micro-plans? How many demons are actually involved within the clans? Do each one of allied clans has a guardian demon or something? It's too much scheming, too much work, too much concern. And so Muzan focused himself on research of his own blood. With his own blood, he could at least try to find out how it could turn organic things to demons. With Yoriichi's blood, he could try to see the differences between his and Yoriichi's so they could isolate what is it in the Sun Slayer's blood that could burn his demon blood. While Muzan worked with his own blood, Tameo worked with Yoriichi's. They tried herbs, combination of herbs, and different methods of extraction from herbs and their blood to see their reaction. This research would take more than 50 years, maybe hundreds of years, and no normal human would try this. It's a good thing both him and Tameo are immortals, their data are consistent and the research is continuous. Muzan-sama, the letter read, when Muzan picked the wrong paper to write his findings on wisteria with a small titer of his blood, I have found a useful pet. I sincerely wish you could name this pet. It's Slayer's crow. It followed me here after I failed saving its previous owner. Muzan notes, red eyes flicking to the previously unnoticed crow perched on the lab's window. Hello. The crow croaked, and Muzan raised an eyebrow. Didn't know the core trained crows now. Hello. Muzan replied quietly, reading back Akaza's letter. Rest assured, I have punched the demon that killed the Slayer to pieces. It couldn't regenerate and I hide its remains out of sight, so that man wouldn't notice it gone for a time. I have unfortunately not made any progress in finding Blue Spider Lily. I apologize profusely for my failings. The crow is not named yet. I sincerely wish you would accept it as my penance of my failure. Eternally wishing you good health, your loyal servant, Akaza. A name for a crow, huh? Nico, Muzan said, and the crow tilted his head. Parroting Nico. Back, it is your name. Ignoring the crow's squawks of protest, Muzan grabbed a piece of paper to write instructions for more reports and maybe a bit espionage about Michikatsu to the demon. Shoving the letter to the indignant cat the crow, he pushed the bird out of his window. Now where was he? Right, boiled wisteria with his blood. You have a bad naming sense, Muzan-kun. Tameo tutted from another side of the room. He didn't even notice her enter earlier. A moment passed before he decided to reply. It's funny. Horrible naming sense. I shudder thinking of what would you name our demon antidote. Thanks Shisu, I try. Every year, Dalma would visit Tameo and Muzan's house to eat leftover experiments per Muzan's order, like a convenient trash can he is. These visits are normally uneventful, with Dalma chewing things and Tameo or Muzan in the room, collecting and reviewing notes. Muzan-sama, what do you think of children? Dalma usually come and go without a word, so when Dalma spoke, it surprises Muzan enough that his pen slides and scratches the paper until it creates a hole. Knowing Dalma, Muzan chose to ignore him. He wasn't even looking at Dalma as he picked another paper to write. And he waited. Can I eat them? There it is. The real question he wants to ask. Muzan thinks of the question for a bit. His demons are free to do whatever, collect eyeballs and intestines, become a fish, become a Venus flytrap, makes a castle of femur. See, the limit is their imagination. So Muzan doesn't think he has any say in deciding what they want to eat or not to eat, tiny human beings or not. But personally, I don't eat children. And he doesn't. He had killed children, overestimating his blood amount to their tiny body that they often explode, oftentimes just smashing them too hard to things because they tried to attack him. But he doesn't eat them. He also doesn't care if his demons want to eat exclusively children, virgins, or virgin boys whose birthday is on October on full moon. We all have food preference here, no matter how weird it is. Curious, Muzan peeks through his hair, noting Dalma looking back with the same empty smile he always has. Dalma nodded then, and said, of course. Muzan isn't sure if he understands what Dalma means by that of course, but he decided to let it go. Whatever it is weird thing Dalma planned, future Muzan would deal with it. Who are you? Yoriichi asked, after staring at his female, yukata-covered form for about 5 minutes since he entered and sat in front of Yoriichi. Muzan forced himself not to growl, instead flicking a stray cut of ramen from the table to his forehead. As usual, Yoriichi didn't even blink. The demon sighed, before changing his voice pitch to that of his usual self and said, it's me, you idiot. The man's mouth promptly made a genuinely expression with his mouth forming a perfect O. It made Muzan snort. Even after all this time, Yoriichi still didn't manage to figure him out if he's in disguise like this. Yoriichi truly walks the line between genius and an oblivious idiot. A sigh. Come on, we are going on an errand. Tameo wants some wild berries around these forests area. The errand itself is normal enough. Muzan directed Yoriichi on which plants have the berries that they want. It helps that they can ask the locals. Nobody suspects a girl with a yukata with her Oni-chan looking for wild berries to help their sickly auntie. Maybe a bit questioned because it's night, but the questions are tame enough with them convinced Yoriichi could protect them both. Besides, the night is still young. Sunset was literally an hour ago. Thankfully Yoriichi is quiet the entire time. Muzan had to use his female pitch voice and he followed his cover story naturally. What isn't normal was a dozen of demons appearing out of nowhere from the foliage of the forest. They aren't Muzans, as he activated his curse telepathically and none of them reacts. Damn, he had to find more ways to breach through Michikatsu's control of technically Muzan's demons. They didn't even fight back to back, as Michikatsu himself appeared and separated Muzan and Yoriichi while cracking the ground and trees between them in several gashes. Muzan vaguely noticed that Michikatsu and Yoriichi are in a duel, leaving Muzan with probably 20 demons attacking in unpredictable patterns. Dodging an exploding earlobe, Muzan parried several hair limbs while his tentacles are busy on their own warding flamed nails, multiplying pens, and a lot more projectiles. He snarled when a rubbery foot curled around his ankle, cutting it to pieces, but the time of stand still caused explosions and needles to his body. Forcefully shifting his body mid-dodge, he unfurled a set of bat wings made from his own bones and skin from his back, and with a stifled groan of pain he flew up. Mid-air, he forced his bones to produce needles, and with a beat of his wings he rained them down on the demons. Bloodied, dead trees grew in twists like clay to reach him, twigs reaching out and throwing projectiles. Supported by sharp rock projectiles, needles, and poison fog, with gritted teeth he realized he has to come down. Muzan pulled a bone from his shoulder as a makeshift sword, and dive-bombed down to the one controlling the trees. Tentacles reaching out to impale everything in its path, the fight continues. It was the most exhausting fight Muzan ever had the pleasure of participating. Sure, in the end he barely end up with a scratch and other demons are in pieces. Sure, his pain is now gone and he returned to his usual condition. But it was tiring. What is Michikatsu's problem anyway? Muzan is kind enough not to do anything as of yet to their war status quo, and he replied with a direct attack. Muzan limped to the clearing where the trees are slashed in at least 12 pieces and the ground burnt, twisting his ankle to drag his feet through the destruction Michikatsu and Yoriichi has wrought. The trees eventually stopped to find way to an open grass area, no less wrecked than the forest. He was just in time to see Yoriichi stabbed in the chest by Michikatsu. His pale, usually expressionless face contorted in pain as Michikatsu pulled the blade up, through his lungs and out of Yoriichi's left shoulder. Dropping down like a doll, his black nichiren fell from his remaining hand as Yoriichi coughed blood. And now Muzan is exhausted and pissed. It's funny, actually. Muzan hadn't actually want to do anything about Michikatsu. Sure, he wants to conquer the world and bring world peace. But there's one of his demons who wanted to make a brothel for demons, another who wants to be director of all swords in whole Japan, or marrying and eating all virgins in this world. So on so forth. He had heard a lot of other wishes and ambitions. What difference is Michikatsu from his other demons? Other than, he's far more ambitious and idealist. But this is personal. Yoriichi's second chance of killing his brother and died together with that shitty brother wouldn't end here. It couldn't. While Yoriichi hibernates and recover his strength, Muzan would teach his first student a lesson. Fine, Muzan thinks, looking at Yoriichi's pale face and Tameo's exhausted one after the hellish operation to fix his lungs, ribs, and flush the wisteria poison out with his critical condition. I'll do this myself. Dauma is close to Ito, Muzan offhandedly mentioned, fixing his sandal. Tameo stared at him for a moment too long, and Muzan realized she is worried. For this reckless plan of his, for this I'll travel around Japan again, alone, dig information about Michikatsu and makes his life harder whenever I can hubris. Hey, at least he's determined to go through with this hubris. Eventually though, Tameo nodded. Be careful, she said, her hands holding each other tightly and yet her smile remains serene. I will take care of our resident Slayer of the Sun, don't worry. Ito is a nice place to begin contact with the Slayers. Muzan raised an eyebrow at that. Yes, he does needs another person inside the Slayer Corps for his big plan to be realized. But really, Tameo is willing. I should hope so. He concedes. I wish you luck, Tameo. And I to you, Muzan-sama. I eternally wish for your success and eagerly awaits your return. That was very sincere of her, no trace of sarcasm or sassiness which usually is there. That's No, he's getting emotional. That's no good. After all, he has a lot of things to do. Ongoing. Muzan jumped to the trees and disappeared to the dark, not noticing Tameo who bowed down deep to her waist. Muzan-sama, as you suspected, he is a demon under the Minamoto clan's household. I have dispatched the demon and deliver the letter as you instructed. I will leave for Tsujikuni clan come sunset. Muzan-sama, the girl wouldn't shut up, so I forcefully put her doll stuffing to her mouth. She seems to be fine, breathing and healthy, but I am not sure. I will arrive in the Tsujikuni this midnight. Muzan-sama, there is a complication with the doctor. He did not want to come with us. He seems to be scared of Dauma. He fell sick seeing the amount of blood Dauma has when his head explodes. I was forced to knock him out, but I did deliver him to the Midoriko clan. My failure of disciplining Dauma is unacceptable. I await your punishment for this failure. Muzan-sama, Dauma have done killing the demon under the Ashia clan and I have dropped the letter. We are now en route to the Yoshida clan. Muzan-sama, Dauma have too much fun killing and eating people in this region. I sincerely requested he is put to a severe punishment for not doing his mission seriously. I made eye contact with the target as you instructed. Muzan-sama, it seems like the mission is success. The Tsujakuni no longer lives in the compound. Rumor has it they are exiled into another region. Muzan-sama, I have met with Jayako as you instructed. The Demon Corps have regained their funds, spearheaded by Yoshida, Minamoto, Atsushi and Midoriko clan. Muzan-sama, I have dispatched of the assassin residing in Nobunaga clan as you instructed. Should I remain in the household? No. Go to the Suzumi clan. Kill the heir, male, firstborn, 20. Go by Ryuzaki and often boasts about boar killing. He should be guarded by a demon. Kill it too. Dakheim is in the region. 3 months. Don't leave any trails and don't be seen, or make it natural. Muzan-sama, it's Dauma. Make it natural means no trace and I can eat them all, yes. Neko is such a bad crow, he keeps biting me, can I eat it and we get a new one? Yes and no. Play nice, Dauma. Muzan-sama, I have captured and killed the traitor. There are several of that man's demons chasing me and I have dispatched of them as well. Muzan-sama, we managed to track Ubuyashiki but were ambushed by Hashira slayers. We are injured but Nakheim and Jayako have accommodated our escape and we will recover fine. Unfortunately, none of those ungrateful humans want to listen to us or accept your letter. I apologize for my failure. They burned your letter and Akaza get angry, he punched all of them and they tumble down like trees. Muzan-sama, they aren't dead though, so they'll be fine. Probably. Far in an inn, Kibutsuji Muzan sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose, exhausted. He let Nico in and ignored it as it drank water and ate some corns he prepared earlier. Well, that's one failure, at least the other ones are successes. Now, he has a heiress to frame. Muzan-sama, I have kids. Put them on the table. A set of thuds and a yelp. Wait, what? Carefully, Muzan puts vials of blood down in the closet before he looked at what Dauma had just put on the table of his lab. It is indeed children on the table. Demon children, actually. Teenagers, maybe. 12, 13 years old. Muzan twitched, resisting the urge to facepalm. Where did you find them? He asked, flat. I was wandering around Edo looking for information as you instructed. And then I found them in the alleyway and they said they want to be demons. I asked and played nice. Dauma said, sunshine and smile for whoever looked at him and not knowing what he is. Muzan took the information for a couple of seconds before he looked at the children, male and female, both looking warily at him. But interestingly, there's also contempt at the male's expression, contempt which he tried and failed to hide. Is that true? He eventually asked. Yes, Muzan-sama. The male one muttered like a rebellious child talking to a parent he doesn't want to talk to. What are your names? I am Juyutaru and this is my sister Daki. Resisting the urge to sigh, Muzan walked closer to the children. Close enough until his hands could reach them. Dauma puts a hand on each of the siblings' shoulders, so that they didn't jump even though they are tense when Muzan touched each of their necks. With a stab of his thumb to their necks, a red crescent moon appeared on their skin. There, done. You will remain in the red light district of Edo, Muzan said, nonchalantly undo Daki's hair tie and combing them with his hands. You both will be my ears and eyes of Edo. I trust you both know which are the important people. Avoid getting noticed or seen. You will listen to them, observe them, and report to me in Tameo only. Understand? By the time he's finished, Daki's hair has formed a butterfly-style ponytail. The girl looks bewildered but flustered when Muzan raised an eyebrow at her. Juyutaru looks incredulous but yelped when Muzan reached to ruffle his hair. Understand? Yes, Muzan-sama. Who is this sassy, lost child? Muzan wanted to ask, but he didn't. The child continued glaring at him, and Muzan continued staring at him, unimpressed. This is Ueshiru, my apprentice. Tameo finally appeared from the hall of her new office, smiling as she puts a hand on Ueshiru's shoulder. I heard from Dauma that you like children, Muzan-sama. Isn't he cute? There's this mirth on her face, and Ueshiru promptly turned his glare to this pleased expression and then twisted it disgusted expression that would it not directed at him. Muzan would be impressed. As it is, he's only impressed by how quick this kid's emotions changed and how he controlled his expression perfectly to cater to them. Must be hard, having emotions. Not if they bite, Muzan muttered lowly. What was that, Muzan-kun? Backtrack. Nothing, Shishu. At least she's not alone, now. And Ueshiru behaves extremely well with Tameo. She doesn't look like she's as sad she was when Muzan left, at least. Yoriichi, after more than 100 years, is still asleep. He couldn't help but started to think, maybe, no, he is stronger than that. What is it with his demons and bringing him children? Is that kid for me? Muzan asked, tired, as he saw Akaza holding hands with a white-haired demon child trotting behind him. Akaza beamed, as expected of Muzan-sama. Yes, Muzan-sama, this is Rui. He was sickly. I found him with Dauma's cult. Akaza's expression twisted to angry yet disgusted frown. He was going to eat him. That's okay, Muzan wanted to say, staring at nothing. Rui can get eaten, Dauma can eat children. I didn't say that you guys can't eat humans. Just don't kill or eat the slayers. Akaza, why are you like this? While contemplating his choices on life, should he call Dauma to eat this child? Should he let this child run free? Why is Akaza bringing him here? What is he, a daycare? Muzan felt a tug on his sleeve. Rui, white-skinned, white-haired, white kimono yet strangely red eyes, looked up at him. Muzan looked down, suddenly not knowing what to do in the face of the flat yet innocent expression of the child. Are you my father? Rui asked. He's not. He's really not. Damn it. Shake your head, Muzan. Be strong. Rui the child must interpret his jerking head as a nod, and the demon child trotted happily beside him, climbing to his lap. Akaza beamed in sparkles. Rui beamed back, doubling the sparkles. What the fuck? A part of Muzan's brain that are not dead of sparkles, whispered. Nakheim, do I have a daycare of demon children? Muzan has asked it as a joke, seeing Ueshiru slowly crumbles in the face of the terrifyingly adorable menace with the flat expression called Rui. The child is dragging Ueshiru with his thread to play hide and seek with him. Ueshiru puts a formidable fight, yelling and screaming and a lot of curses as he digs his feet to the ground. But Rui is undeterred and his thread could cut stones. Maybe it's Muzan's fault for the last one, but moving on. Juyuteru, from the tree where he perched at, are discreetly throwing rocks at Ueshiru and trying to ruin his balance, snickering. Nakheim is suspiciously silent beside him. Nakheim? He asked, glancing at her. Well, the demon said, a bit hesitantly. About half of our forces are teenagers, Nakheim said slowly, and after that, 40% are children. The remaining 10% are adults. Huh? Didn't I say I want to be fair in demonizing people? Not picking and all that. A few hundred years ago. Or more. Nakheim nodded. Yes, Muzan-sama. But you always prioritize strays and children more. I think you did it unconsciously. Well then, get your fucking dog off me, you useless demon lord. Who? Muzan blinked, pretending not to see or hear the screaming boy in the garden. Have you seen any demon lord, Nakheim? He said, flatly. No, Muzan-sama. Nakheim replied, just as dully and flatly. Ueshiru. Tameo snapped from the kitchen, before Ueshiru could yell anymore. A faint girly giggling from Daki can be heard. Language. Bad language, Rui said, seriously yet flatly nodding while hand-chopping Ueshiru's back repeatedly. Bad Ueshiru. Bad, bad. Ueshiru screamed, for he is frustrated and he does not understand how a tiny gremlin like Rui can be stronger than him. This isn't so bad, Muzan thinks. Muzan-sama, look, I found a baby. You, what? It's a human baby. Thank God or whatever deity out there that it's a human baby. If it's demon baby, then Muzan will have an immortal baby in his hands. Forever unable to become adult or able to learn languages. Can you imagine a tiny thing who could fluently speak like an adult? A tiny little bundle of meat who could walk and talk but never grow? Or a tiny thing who could only cry and poop and needs to be fed eyeballs and blood every day? For eternity. Fuck no. If Dauma ever brings him a demon baby to him, Muzan is going to cut him to pieces, feed him to the crocodile, and eat Dauma's skull himself. The child is noisily, loudly, crying on his lab table, so Muzan quickly holds the baby in his hands, his doctor brain kicking his hands into gear to hold it properly, rocking the baby covered in clothes in his hand gently to try calming it down. It did not work. Dauma, the little shit, is still smiling widely at Muzan. Dauma, yes, Muzan-sama. If you ever bring me a baby again, you're going to be my permanent food source. Muzan is not looking at Dauma, but he knew Dauma has stiffened, realizing the gravity of the situation. After all, despite being something akin to a king of demons and respected as one, Muzan rarely ever threatened his children. And when he has threats, he will see it through. With a screaming baby in his hands and a decently terrified Dauma, Muzan jumped from his window and practically flew to Tameo's clinic. Tameo found Muzan in a messy operation room, sheets thrown about, closets and drawers open, bottles are out in the open, and a baby is on the bed, of course, screaming his lungs out like a baby he is. Shishu, I can explain, Muzan blurts out, before his brain could catch up. Tameo's smile turned even sharper than before. He narrowly dodged the syringe which Tameo just threw at his eye. He hadn't even seen the woman move. She's very pissed and she's doing it while smiling angelically, as if she hadn't tried poking his eye with a syringe filled with purple goo. Oh shit. Sit down and start then, Muzan-kun. Being a father is hard. He doesn't really know how to start this. Being a normal father is, Muzan is sure hard enough. Now imagine you're a demon father with a lot of demon children under your wings, an immortal nemesis out there to chase and take down before he could take you down. And your baby is human. See, his demon children are still self-sufficient. Sure, his demons are mostly teenagers, but even teenagers as young as Daki and Juyutaru are running off on their own. Nakaim's human years was 15 and she does her own thing with her group of other demon teenagers, harvesting human kidneys for art and vandalizing buildings with blood or whatnot. Like teenagers they are. Well, demon teenagers. But the point is they don't need Muzan to be there. Even Rui, with his inhuman, terrifying obsession with concept of family, occasionally go off on his own. Taking care of Hashibira Inosuke is a challenge, but after some time, doable. Once Muzan realized what exactly he had to do and remember them in one of his brains perfectly, it's more than a little challenge. Not hard, per se, just a challenge. Inosuke is a loud baby when he cries, but he's quiet when he's full. After that he's usually busy trying to crawl from his crib or climbing a chair. He isn't picky on food, too. Instead he tried to eat everything. Spoon, his own clothes, plates, glass, anything laying around in his baby hands' reach. It's a bit tiring. But Muzan can generate extra eyes and limbs and coordinate them independently with his other brain to take care and look out for the child while he's doing something else. So, doable. Tameo remarked that maybe he's teething, but far as Muzan remember, Inosuke bites everything even since he was 3 months old. Inosuke is the one who made Muzan order a special leather satin-made gloves, just so the child could contently gnaw his fingers without accidentally turn to a demon. Though Muzan uses it 24/7 because it's a hassle to take them off and use it again every hour or so. Inosuke is 1 year old now, and he made it his mission to bite on everything his eyes can see. He can climb things too, so he tends to reach a lot of things with his tiny hands. Muzan is equal parts proud and incredulous, seeing Inosuke climb the table and then the cabinet up to the ceiling. It doesn't help that since Inosuke is never, ever alone, and there's always someone who talks to him almost every hour, he can already talk in 1 and 3 months old. Inosuke used his baby speech as a weapon to get whatever he wants. Muzan doesn't remember what was his first word, but remember the time Inosuke whines, "Tu-sha, up, tu-sha," before Muzan's surprise of being called father disappeared and Inosuke's whine to be picked up. Relenting, he picked the child up in his hands and Inosuke was instantly happy, circling his hands around Muzan's neck. Daki squeals to Inosuke's aghai, Fwoa, and instantly gave up her flower hair pin to Inosuke to gnaw. She brought a lot of different blunt hair pins for Inosuke to gnaw since then. Juyutaru puts up a formidable resistance while his sister is around but eventually gave up when Inosuke yells, "Guahawuo." And ever since become Inosuke's demon lift, Juyutaru would lift Inosuke so high using his scarf the child would laugh shriek in joy. Nakaim gave up stopping Inosuke from tangling his little body to her hair. Instead continue reading him storybooks while Inosuke is busy using her hair as a blanket or a chew toy. Sometimes her hair will end up with a lot of candies, sometimes just tangling to a horrible mess it's beyond saving. Muzan could see her teary eyes behind her hair, but she endures because it's Inosuke and he's adorable. Inosuke need only to smile and Nakaim melts. Akaza visited once and had then become Inosuke's horse, a very fast horse mind. Muzan would be concerned if it's any normal baby but it's Inosuke. The child screams in joy rather than in fear from the high speed Akaza went, carrying Inosuke on his shoulders and running around. Sometimes they laugh and sync, it's mildly terrifying. Rui, who managed to visit once in the middle of the long-term mission Muzan has assigned him, smiles in joy seeing he has a little brother. They made a castle of white threads, covered by rocks, grass, candies, and Daki's flower hairpins in Tameo's garden, which was very difficult to clean. None of them look sorry in face of Tameo's scolding, though. Tameo is Inosuke's personal doctor and aunt, and so Inosuke is terrified of her on bad days and obeys her without question on good days. In days in between, Inosuke would let himself sleep in her arms. Muzan understands, she's very calming and smells like flowers and herbs even without her blood demon art. Today, Inosuke's biting crusade includes human fingers in a tube Inosuke insisted to open. "No, Inosuke," Muzan said. A red, meaty tentacle which protruded out of Muzan's back grabbed the baby from the upper drawer, gently covering the child's figure, bringing Inosuke down. The child yells when Muzan pried the tube from his hand. Ish. Just because you saw Uncle Dauma eat it doesn't mean you can eat it too. Inosuke pouts. Muzan ignored that adorable pout out of practice and puts the child on his table. Each eyeballs on his tentacles, eyes tracking down Inosuke's movement as it fenced around Inosuke loosely yet protectively. Just as Muzan picked out a honey candy from the closet, Inosuke cried out, "OOOMAJIII." Inosuke climbs out of Muzan's tentacle wall and jumped from the table. Dauma, quick as he is, instantly materialized near the child to caught him. See, even Dauma the empty doll couldn't resist Inosuke's charm. He lets the child climb his robes into his shoulder, in perfect place to ruin Dauma's blonde hair with his sticky fingers. The demon smiled the entire time, never speaking or making a noise. Knowing Dauma, he's probably resisting himself not to say anything that Inosuke could copy, or wanting to kill Inosuke but refrained, or maybe he's just scared of Muzan if he ever hurt Inosuke. Either way, Dauma makes a decent babysitter when he visits to eat leftover experiments. The one who is immune or outright ignored Inosuke is Yuashiro. Muzan thinks the boy is terrified of Inosuke, and it's funny because his shifty and outright disappearance made Inosuke thinks Yuashiro is always playing magic hide and seek with him. Inosuke would trot around the house and clinic and squeals in joy every time he saw a hint of Yuashiro, running to catch the panicked and pissed off demon boy. And Inosuke's very persistent. Yuashiro would be caught eventually. Muzan almost pity the boy. Almost. Taking care of human children is also involving sunlight, typically by letting the child play under sunlight. They need it for their bones and growth development. Infant Inosuke enjoyed the sun on his being. 2 hours every day, as Muzan prepared a basket and a rope to pull Inosuke out of sunlight once he's done sunbathing. Sometimes he got only 1 hour because Inosuke is crying, or when he made a fuss, but most of the time he's sunbathing just fine. Now Inosuke's caretakers are all demons here. The only one who could conquer the sun is still asleep, and Muzan realized that 2 years old Inosuke doesn't want to do anything with sunlight. He's very pale and he sleeps come sunlight, like a bat, no matter how everyone encouraged him to play outside with other children. Once Inosuke is out in the sun and noticed no one follows him outside, he ran back home. He refused to come out again ever since. Inosuke is 4 and Tameo noticed his aversion to sunlight stunted his growth. Despite his healthy food and his activeness, Inosuke is not very tall, and he's rather thin. Muzan is apprehensive of it. Desperate situation calls for desperate measures. That statement means involving Muzan putting a lot of burn salve on his entire body before he wrapped his hands in bandages, long yukata, a straw hat, a mask, and then an umbrella before he braved himself to the sunlight. Only then, Inosuke finally want to play outside. Muzan expected himself to instantly combust the time he stepped to the sun, no matter his umbrella and his fully covered skin. But of course he doesn't. Yet, even with all this protection he uses, he could feel the sun heat stings his skin like an annoying, under-the-skin pinpricks. It isn't painful, doesn't hurt him at all, but it's annoying and it feels like a death sentence breathing down on him. Like he's walking on tightrope with fire under him, ready to swallow once he sway. Come on San. Faster, there are berries. You can't eat them, Muzan said, automatic. But why? They're poisonous. But you and Auntie are smarts and everyone can heal me right? Right? Inosuke, Muzan sighed, long-suffering and practiced. The child shifted away from the bush of berries with a pout. Fuyanie. Oh ho, San there. Did you see? Inosuke is far too happy as he tugs Muzan's hand forward, asking things he's never seen before in the dark. So Muzan focused himself on the hyperactive child rather than his imminent death. They traveled through the nearby forest, stopping in a cave where Muzan felt mildly safe while Inosuke's running around the clearing. With a note not to put anything in his mouth, Inosuke is apparently satisfied enough playing by himself, skipping rocks to nearby stream and picking flowers, asking Muzan what they are and if they are useful every once, and then, while keeping his ears out for Inosuke's faint voice in the distance, vaguely, Muzan heard growling. It came from the dark cave behind him, confirming Inosuke is far from where he is and generating an extra eyeball in the back of his neck just in case. Muzan turned around. It's a boar emerging from the cave. A very big brown boar, actually. It dwarves Muzan, who sat down at the mouth of the cave to hide from the sunlight. Muzan tips his hat up, just enough to show his red slitted eyes, conveying how annoyed he is if this boar dare fought him and how he will kill this boar to pieces if he dares. The boar whimpers and took steps back. Animal instinct dictates that every animals are scared of him, the bigger predator, so it's good it's still working with a monstrous boar like this. Inosuke appeared at the mouth of the cave then, bringing a lot of plants in his hands, no doubt about to ask Muzan about what they are. The child noticed the boar behind Muzan first though, and he squealed, abandoning the plants in his hands. With no ounce of fear and full-on vibrating excitement in his tiny body, Inosuke runs to the boar and jumps to the fluffy thing. Muzan glared once more, and the wild animal cowered and finally sat down. Inosuke climbs its snout and rubs his tiny hands on its fur, laughing. "That's okay too, Sam. You don't have to play with me anymore." Tiny 5 years old Inosuke said, stomping imperiously and folding his hands in front of his chest as if saying, "To Sam, keep up. I can play by myself. And strong." Muzan is not convinced of that. Not at all. Sure, Inosuke is strong and he's definitely smarter than most kids, having seen most tiny human children his age acts. But Inosuke is never alone since he's one. He gets lonely easily, despite his bravado. "What brought this on?" Muzan asked instead. Instead of answering, Inosuke pouts. His cheeks are stuffed with air. It looks like an imitation of squirrel. An angry frown is on his face. His face is almost red in anger. "No, embarrassment. Just stay here too, Sam." Inosuke stomped once more before he jumped to the garden. Taking a few steps, Inosuke stops. He turned around and glared at Muzan, daring him to follow. Muzan, unaffected, sits still on their porch, protected from sunlight, watching. This repeated at least 5 times until Inosuke reached the edge of the forest, disappearing behind the foliage. Muzan counted 3 seconds before Inosuke's head pops out behind a tree, squinting and glaring at Muzan, as if he doesn't believe that Muzan wouldn't follow. Finally satisfied, Inosuke nodded and runs to the forest. Muzan could hear Inosuke's footsteps cut through dry leaves and twigs, deeper and deeper through the trees. Inosuke's right, of course. However, he's much too young to try to stop Muzan or detect him when he doesn't want to be seen, even in the light of day. In the forest, Inosuke is wrestling the boar they had met a year ago. It has since become Inosuke's constant playmate. Settling down to a branch, leaning to a tree, Muzan shifted his position to get better protection from the shadows of the leaves, and he kept quiet, watching the child play. To Sam, Inosuke, 10 years old, broke the door with his kick thunderously. Dauma is much too calm to choke on his food regardless of anything happened. But Muzan is not. He choked on his tea but managed to disguise it as a cough. In the other hall, Nakheim tripped on her broom in surprise. His eyebrows rose when he saw Inosuke holding 2 swords, definitely Nichiren blades in his hands. Inosuke-sama. Akaza appeared from behind Inosuke, surprisingly bloodied and a bit haggard. "No." Too late. Inosuke sat on a stance in the kitchen. Dauma is curious, but unmoving, as is Muzan. Too late. Muzan realized Inosuke's breathing pattern changed. Before the child yelled, "Beast breath technique. FIRT style." It was only Dauma's and Muzan's reflexes that allowed them to duck in time as Inosuke slashed the swords at the same time. Their whole kitchen is ruined, everything cut to 2 and an X cut formed on the wall behind him. Impressive. Muzan can guess what happened with Akaza and Inosuke in the forest when Muzan ordered Akaza to pick up Inosuke an hour ago. The sun has come down after all. Inosuke can get lost, no matter how good his sight in the dark is. Instead, it seems like they met a demon and some slayers. Akaza is definitely poisoned by his slightly labored breaths, and Inosuke managed to use breathing technique. Just by seeing. Who knows that Inosuke is such a genius? Truly impressive. But his kitchen is expensive. Inosuke, Muzan said, materializing in front of the child and looming over his tiny figure like a big shadow. His voice was chilling low as Muzan glared down to the human child. Inosuke gulped. Nichiren blades dropped from his trembling hands. Muzan considered waking Yoriichi up. After all, none in this house actually knows any proper training to use breathing technique. Inosuke could learn a lot from him. Yoriichi looks fine, too. It's been 200 years already. How can he be asleep that long? But when he contacted the Slayer through his demon telepathy, his presence is not there, foggy, even though Muzan is sitting beside his sleeping figure. So, unfortunately, not yet. Fortunately, all demon slayers write the same thing about their vague training regime. Do it until you're half deaf, train yourself to death and back alive again. Muzan called it run. Akaza called it dodge the demons. Inosuke lovingly called it hell. Somewhere inside of Nakheim's interdimensional house, Inosuke screamed. Mad cackles followed. Probably Akaza and Juyuteru. Muzan can't imagine Rui cackling. And anyways, Rui isn't here, even though his thread traps are here. A loud crash sounded. Muzan can guess Inosuke triggered another one of Rui's traps even from afar. As Nakheim blew her cup of tea in her hands, Muzan picks his cup up. Nursing the warm tea in his hands, he stared to the slightly moving rooms and ladders around him, expression serene. "The tea is delicious today," he said, a faint, terrorized "D-A-D. O-T-O-U Sam." aka Zai is fucking crazy. Get the fuck away. From afar could be heard. It is, Muzan-sama. Nakheim replied, just as serene. Do you have everything? Yep. Nikiren, jacket, handkerchief, burn and wound salve, wisteria vial. Wordlessly, boredly, 14 years old Inosuke lifted every items asked from his pouch before he put them back carelessly. The boy is in his teenage rebelling stage. He's even more bratty than his 6 years old self. At least when he was 6, he was cute. Muzan tugged the purple scarf around Inosuke's neck tighter, sharply making him stumble, asking the boy to focus. Inosuke yelped and glared, but ultimately looked down. Brat, Inosuke. The boy's blue eyes looked up, focusing at his red. Now, what does he say? He may be Inosuke's father for 14 years now, but Muzan knows Inosuke is raised by everyone. His demon moons are co-parenting Inosuke, Tameo filling in the blanks he couldn't fill because he doesn't understand humans sometimes. His experience in parenting is still so insignificant, even though Inosuke does spend most of his time with Muzan than with any other demons. I might be not your real father, but I'm proud of you. The demon decided to settle on. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. No matter what happens, I will always be proud of you. Inosuke puffed his cheeks behind his scarf. Before Muzan could confirm if those are tears in his blue eyes, the preteen hugged his father, burying his face on his suit. Gently, Muzan pats the child's head. They grew up so fast, aren't they? Tameo sighed from behind him, as soon as Inosuke's figure disappeared in the distance. It feels like yesterday I was just changing his clothes and bathed him. You're just getting old, Shishu. Muzan quipped. I don't want to hear it from such a sappy father like you, Muzan-kun. She cheerfully yet menacingly replied. There, you can cry on my bosom, my precious student. What tears? Muzan grumbled softly. It's just dust. The she-devil smiled serenely. I'm sure they are. Dust? Muzan turned around, walking back to Tameo's clinic. He exhaled his breath softly. Now, if everything flows like he planned, then the end is near. There was a smell, a particular smell. It's different from the smell of the one who slaughtered his family though, but it held the same slight rotten smell, the same coppery tang of blood and filth. But this one is stronger, more intense. This isn't the one who turned Nezuko to demon, but this is definitely a demon smell. As he pushed his feet forward to run faster and faster through the alley, in the crowd, he's scared. How can there be a demon amidst these many humans, in this kind of glimmering city? How dare they hide and surround themselves by their victims like this? What kind horrible thing would he found at the center of this unbearably strong smell? Tanjiro moved faster, pushing a lot of people's body out of his way without apology. In the back of his mind, Tanjiro apologizes to everyone and then to his mother for his appalling manners. It felt like forever, but finally he reached the center of the smell, the demon. Tanjiro grabbed the man's wrist, holding back his fearful gasp as said demon turned to look at him. Ruby, red cat-like eyes of annoyed frown, smooth, pale face hooded by white hat, twin curly fringes framing the demon's annoyed sneer. For a second Tanjiro was in panic because he might be facing a powerful demon in the middle of these crowds, alone. And Nezuko is not with him. For a second he felt his hairs stand on end with the demon's chilling glare, frozen in the demon's murderous intention. Tanjiro jerks stiffly to grab his sword and readies himself to face pain, but the demon's eyes looked at his earrings then. And suddenly Tanjiro could smell myriads of emotion, strong enough by their proximity, coming from this demon: shock, surprise, guilt, sadness, guilt, panic, guilt, and as quickly as they come, they disappeared along with the sneer, replaced by a carefully cool expression on the demon's face. He lifted his hand and Tanjiro began to pull his sword for a fight. But again, the demon surprised him by carefully, gently, touched his right earring. The demon's fingers are cold when they brush Tanjiro's cheek, and his touch is impossibly gentle for a demon. Tanjiro couldn't help but to look at his expression and noted how the demon's ruby eyes was softer somehow, rubbing the Hanafuda symbol between his thumb and index finger, as if testing if they are real. Eventually, they locked eyes and Tanjiro squared his shoulders, tense for a fight. The demon's eyes are not murderous or hostile, very different from any demons Tanjiro has encountered. It was still the carefully, coolly flat expression, but his eyes are searching. Tanjiro did not back down from those assessing ruby eyes, and he doesn't know what, but it seems like the demon has found what he wanted to find. The demon lets out a slow breath and leaned back, yet Tanjiro is still wary. When he spoke, his voice is silky smooth and barely above a whisper, "You're coming with me." Alarm bell rings in his head, but Tanjiro was too slow, far too slow. In one motion, the demon stole his Nichiren from its place and scooped him in his hands. Before he knew it, Tanjiro was holding on the unknown demon's neck for his dear life as they were launched to the skies. Nezuko, Tanjiro yelled, not looking down as the demon jumped over houses and towers, and dear God, they're flying. Go back. He doesn't know what was it he pulled from the demon. Maybe his hair, maybe his ear. And the demon hissed and tightened his grip in what Tanjiro thinks is bone-breaking strength to his waist. Tanjiro was undeterred though. He pointed to the other reaction and pulled again whatever it is he gripped. My sister is over there. Go back. Tanjiro smelt annoyance followed by a deep sigh. But the demon did turn to where Tanjiro pointed and spotted his sister. Her box, with an angry ramen vendor in no time. In another one smooth, unseen move, he threw some money, swing her wooden box to his shoulder, and then perched Nezuko in his left hand. Nezuko met Tanjiro's eyes behind the demon's back, and she blinked innocently, tilting her head as they sailed through the air, the moon behind them. Tentatively, Tanjiro smiled. So even his sister trusted this demon. Whoever it is, so maybe Tanjiro can trust him too. They arrived in a garden, greeted by a grumpy young boy who smoothed his scowl to a sneer once he locked eyes with Demon-san's eyes. Demon-san puts Nezuko and Tanjiro down, and he stuttered a thank you, which was ignored by Demon-san. The boy scowls again once he saw Tanjiro and his sister, and Tanjiro glared back as he shifted to cover Nezuko because no one glared to his sister. Tanjiro somehow knew the boy wanted to say something. A lot of things maybe, insulting definitely, but Demon-san's eyebrow rose as if in expectation, and the demon boy broke their glaring match first by stepping inside. Demon-san simply sat on the tatami of the living room, in front of a wooden desk, and Tanjiro followed behind him, pulling Nezuko with him. Not one who can stand silence for long. Tanjiro asked, may I know where we are? Demon-san glanced to him, and he replied quietly, this is Tamayo's clinic for humans and demons. Humans and demons. Feeling brave, Tanjiro asked again, why are we here, Demon-san? Before the demon could answer, the demon boy cursed before he literally disappeared. Maybe he run, maybe he jumped. But Tanjiro watched with no small amount of incredulity as the demon boy earlier practically flew to the hall. And in his place, another boy appeared from another hall across. To-san, where'd Yuushiro go? The boy is using a black demon slayer standard uniform, a midnight blue hakama with red flowers adorning the end of the fabric. Black hair pulled up in a ponytail, the ends of his hair turning blue on his back. Two jagged Nichiren blades propped by bandages on his hip. When the boy's blue eyes locked with Tanjiro's red, he spluttered. Monjiro, Inosuke. To-san, in Asuke world to Demon-san. Now it's Tanjiro's turn to splutter. To-san, he said. To-san, Inosuke's father is a demon. What? How? You didn't tell me Tantaro is visiting. My name is Tanjiro. Tanjiro. Yeah. Ignore the fact that you're just kidnapped by a not bloodthirsty demon, Tanjiro. Ignore the fact that the father of the guy who helped you in Demon Slayer selection the other day is a demon. Don't let them cause you existential crisis or headache. Not now. Ignore everything and focus on the idiot's inability to remember your name. The audacity of this pretty guy. Yeah. Inosuke waved dismissively. Kentaro, Tanjiro. Repeat it with me, Inosuke. Tanjiro. Montero. No. Repeat after me first. Forgotten by the bickering preteen demon slayers, toddler Nezuko crawled to Muzan's lap. The one-crowned demon king by everyone but himself simply picks the child up his lap and let her lean to his chest. Her pink eyes growing heavier and heavier, and Muzan combed his fingers through the child's hair, gently, softly. By the time Tamayo appeared to traumatize Inosuke and Yoriichi's successor, Tanjiro, for causing a ruckus in her clinic, Nezuko is fast asleep. He said his name is Kibutsuji Muzan. The man whispered fearfully between tears and his shaking fingers. He stabbed Mina and she attacked everyone. And he just stood there watching. That person was smiling the entire time. The devil. And so began the tale of Yoriichi Tsujakuni, a vagabond who answered ramblings of a madman with a solemnity it does not deserve. A young man who, despite having his name sung in praises by victories of wars, and well on his way to become a clan lord in a few years, gave everything away for his older brother. The same older brother who, then, disappeared from the face of earth. Some mock that the burden of the clan broke him like a coward he is. Before Yoriichi broke their bones instead, he left, chasing the wind for his older brother, and left his clan for ruin. Not long after, he saved a swordsman from a woman who could shoot her mouth off like some sort of kuchiseikana, found that the madman he met a moon ago was right all along, recruited to fight evil in the name of Buddha, scorned and alienated because of his strength, found out his brother turned evil, then scorned again and finally kicked away as punishment. All in that order. Perhaps more accurately to say it's penance, considering Yoriichi is accepting all taunts and contempt directed at him without any fight at all. But, he digresses, the outcome is still the same, vagabond, he became once more. What is this penance for though? His brother, his skill, every life he couldn't save, every wails of anguish, every soul succumbed to evil despite his unbearable strength. Ignorance of letting his brother fly away. Yoriichi even forgot how many years have passed since then. Hearing that his older brother have disappeared in the weight of war, and following his brother's step in abandoning said clan without a second thought. It couldn't be more than 5 to 8 years on top, he thinks. Couldn't be that long, yet it feels forever. Demon Slayer Korra's life was busy, especially if you're taking 5 disciples at once, hated by majority of the Slayers at the same time, and topped by controversy of the whole Corps knowing his twin brother have turned to the demon side. When the Demon Slayer Corps scorned him away in punishment of his blood sin, Yoriichi accepted it with grace. He vowed in his mind to send Kibutsuji Muzan to hell, as he worries of the Corps' forces. Yoriichi was the strongest, after all. The Corps can take care of the demons, but Kibutsuji he can take care of himself. Might as well, the source of all demons probably know where Michikatsu is. Kibutsuji Muzan was evil. Kibutsuji Muzan was cruel. Kibutsuji Muzan was a blight on earth who thrives on blood and suffering of humanity. Kibutsuji Muzan is human. Somehow, nobody has thought to tell the last part to Yoriichi. Killing something that did not even resist his blade left a pinprick of pain in his heart, a bitter tang in his mouth that left him disgusted. That was why he did not kill Muzan that night. Yoriichi couldn't bring himself to swing his sword to the offered neck, particularly after Muzan has slowly stopped attacking, then drops any form of resistance altogether. It reminds Yoriichi of those samurais on the battlefield. Upon realizing how overwhelmingly outclassed they are in front the dance of his blade, they simply gave up, and Yoriichi did not deign them any dignity of honorable death. Living, he thinks, is more important than pride. A monster with monster-like thoughts, they whisper always in fright. But, if the demon, the monster, Kibutsuji Muzan, gave up in front of him, then what is he? He did not expect to get turned into a demon in an effort to make friends with Muzan either. But hey, Yoriichi figures, if this is how it is to be a demon, then it isn't that bad. Surprisingly, funnily, Yoriichi doesn't feel too disgruntled to be a demon since now he's the same as his brother. Two of a set, once more. Maybe like this, he just proves the Demon Slayer CRPS's taunts that he truly have no morals left as human. But they're not here right now and for the foreseeable future, Muzan is here. Following Muzan was only natural after that. Partly of curiosity, partly stems from Yoriichi's distrust of his own instinct. Yoriichi was sure that Muzan is human, his instinct said so, even when his eyes see that those organs are not human. How the blood sings in aggression and bloodlust that is decidedly demonic. Yet, only humans can give up because they felt overwhelming despair. Only human could be relieved as they bared their neck to die. Chase any animal and they would fight, bared their teeth, even with broken bones, to live. Only humans have the mind to commit suicide. Being human doesn't mean Muzan is not evil, though. While Yoriichi is here, he can observe that evil and rectify them in real time, while waiting for his brother to appear again. It's a win-win situation. Kibutsuji Muzan, Yoriichi slowly learns, is utterly human. He accepted an offering gift from one of his demons, Nora, a boy at the age of 8, in the image of a necklace made from human eyeballs. Wordlessly, Muzan put it on his neck, while Yoriichi couldn't decide to be horrified or impressed of the clean cut of those eyeballs, professionally made, for someone so young. Yoriichi does feel sick, though. Muzan still kept the eyeball necklace on, until 3 days later where they met up with Nora again. By that time, those eyeballs have already rot and Nora cried. Muzan, wordlessly, pats the child demon's head and quietly, gently whispers to make something out of human teeth instead. When Nora whines but it isn't pretty enough and doesn't have different colors, Muzan replied, "You can color teeth with leaves and flowers, Nora." Yoriichi decided he did not like the thought of Nora going around killing people to harvest their teeth, but ultimately, with some effort, he focused himself on staying by Muzan's side. Unfortunately though, the next time he met Nora was when the child was massacring a family in search of perfect row of teeth. His Nichiren killed the demon in gentle dance of sunlight. Clear blue sky, spring dance, painless and full of warmth. There are clinking of teeth on tatami floor when Nora's body dissolves to dust, few yellow, few red, and few greens, gleaming dim under moonlight. He picked them up and showed them to Muzan, who realized what happened in 3 seconds and simply looked away, not deigning any response. The pattern repeated. Muzan accepted gifts from his demons, mostly children and young teenagers, mostly made of human body parts in morbid fashion, and all of them get head pats, occasionally hugs. Each time Muzan deigns them head pats, they would beam like Yoriichi's young, excited relatives back in Tsujikuni clan, getting sweets from their traveling uncle who finally returned. Every time Muzan hugs them, they would cling to him like an octopus, using little time to hug tight before Muzan nudged them to let go. And each time, Yoriichi would find them slaughtering innocents and they were killed by his blade. Sometimes, the demon slayer's core killed them first, and Yoriichi found their remains. Yoriichi thought Muzan was not affected by the whole ordeal, after all. He still parades as human in the light of day, still so much focused on his studies and his books, still take midnight walks and turns a begging strays or occasionally a crippled war-forgotten samurai to demons, still turns those who insults him or look at him wrong to demons, and watch with a smug smirk as Yoriichi did the damage control before those demons could murder too many people. Muzan is pettily powerful. Yoriichi remembers time and time again. Like a brat, the sun breath user thought Muzan does not care until he finds a dark, unused room in Muzan's current house. Even though the room is clearly unused, it's clean and well maintained. Inside was a long table, wooden, clinging to the wall, where teeth of different colors on a white linen, smooth river stones stacked neatly besides it, a candle of human melt, a hairpin from dried flowers and human hair. Yoriichi recognizes each one of them as Muzan's gifts, gifts given by those who had perished under Nichiren blades. They go on rows and rows, even in a closet. Muzan had kept all of his gifts, without sound, and not a second too late before Muzan appeared from the corner. Yoriichi has exited the room. With that new knowledge, though, a new perspective opened in Yoriichi's sight. He recognized the slight quiver of Muzan's lips as he brings a black hakama, all that was left from Inori, the sand demon who excitedly told Muzan ways to make noodle using human meat last week. Yoriichi recognized the minuscule drop of Muzan's shoulders as he picked a bone hairpin from Yuuna. Another child demon died in the crop's blades. The slight sheen of red in his slitted eyes when he accepted he took a cracked flute from Taoya, one that was killed in an effort to find herbs that Muzan requested at night. But Muzan did not protest, Yoriichi observes. He did not cry, no matter how Yoriichi was sure he was about to. He did not rage, even under Tamayo's careful, relaxing presence. After all, Yoriichi had seen how Tamayo reduced men crying and curses their emotions by a smile, and a slight smell, by simply being there. Not Muzan, though. He kept a calm mask, a measured tone of voice, simply going on his ways like usual. Never once did Yoriichi hear or see Muzan curse the demon slayer's core and told his demons to move and retaliate. Sure, there are days where he's moody and snappish, that your breathing makes my head hurt. Shut it, yell at Yoriichi, and it usually ends up with them sparring, for Muzan's sake more than Yoriichi's. After that, Muzan had calmed down and simply went on his ways, talking to Tamayo, humoring Akaza and Dalma, accepted every gift's offering and filling his dark room more of memories. It startlingly reminds Yoriichi of himself. The way Muzan held to his gifts and care for them in that dark room, the same as Yoriichi was caring for his flute. Though for Yoriichi, there's a way to reconcile yet. He can still find his twin brother and they both can try again for something new. That's impossible for Muzan. I hope you're happy, no matter how fleeting. Yoriichi sees now, as Muzan hugs another of his stray. This second life I give will not be kind, maybe even crueler than your first. Yoriichi knows, that was what Muzan's huff of breath means when he turns a raped girl on the street a demon, removing her memories, animating her doll-like figure alive. I can turn your life around, but it is wrong. We are not meant to be. And yet he held the newly demon girl up still, in front of the girl's confusion and clinging sadness. Muzan was steadfast and kind. Since when did I held Muzan as high as you, Nai-sama? Kibutsuji Muzan was utterly, absolutely human, despite his blood and power, despite what the world sees and believe. And for that reason, Yoriichi stays. For that reason, every evil which Muzan committed will be eradicated by his own hands, burned by the sun itself, so that Muzan can learn to breathe easier, so that Muzan can believe that he, too, deserves the warmth of sunlight once again, one day. Since the world cannot afford to accept monsters like them, at the very least, they have each other. It's only fair, after all, for Muzan is the one who helps Yoriichi to hope once again, so that when it is time for Yoriichi to drag his brother back to life or to death. You're still an idiot after all this time, Yoriichi. Disappointing. A raged hiss. If not for the burning pain of his lungs and his heart getting cut and poisoned to pieces, Yoriichi would have cowered, just like how it was in their childhood, joining you in that Laos Muzan. Second chances together. Don't make me laugh. This world is unfair. It will never be. It offered no place for us. I will make it bend myself. His hand. Everything is hazy and painful, and Yoriichi wants nothing but to drop down and gave up, but where are his hands? Muzan can hope once again. Why are you so sure? I'm sorry. Why are you so sure that there's a cure for demons, Kamado Tanjiro? Most, no, all who have seen demons and seen human transforms to demons simply kill them. They don't even think of a cure. They are sure there's no other cure than death. It's just not possible. Why do you think otherwise? But that's unfair for you. That's just unfair, Yoriichi-san. Sumiyoshi's brows curl in irritation and concern when Yoriichi merely lowers his head, not deigning any respond. He crawls closer to where Yoriichi sat, sitting directly beside the swordsman now, maybe an effort to be intimidating to his wife and others, but their height difference only makes Sumiyoshi looks like a pouting hamster. Do they even know you are the only demon without bloodlust? That you can walk around under sunlight? Do they know that you have been using your— he gestures avidly to Yoriichi's body, to the latter's amusement, super strength, upgraded senses, to help people both day and night now that you don't even sleep or eat for years. To let them know, they have to know I'm a demon now. Yoriichi said calmly, repeating, since Sumiyoshi have such anger in his tiny body for his condition, anger that Yoriichi doesn't possess, and they would kill you on sight for that. Sumiyoshi continued, still fiery, now folding his hands in front of his chest. How could they do that? Yoriichi doesn't deign at any respond. Again, he focused on the gentle flutter of a butterfly, the gentle, dust caress of its feet on his index finger. How are they so dumb? First they throw you because of your brother's decision, and now they will kill you on sight. You, the swordsman cracked a smile at that. To hear a civilian essentially calling the Demon Slayer Corps idiots is truly a breath of fresh air. Now, dear, at the smooth voice of a woman, the butterfly on his finger decided that its rest was enough, and Yoriichi watched red wings disappear to the blue sky, following a light breeze on the house's open porch. Behind him, he listened in the back of his mind. Sumiyoshi is getting chewed by Sayako again, as his yelling disturbs little Sumire. But surely Yoriichi Dono knows that, and that's not the reason you approach him now, right, honey? Women and their ability to sound menacing, Yoriichi thinks. For a second, Tameyo's smile flashed on Sayako's smiling face. Right, Yoriichi-san, I know I said I don't like fighting, and I couldn't fight like you, but I thought it was because you're a demon, and I'm a human. I thought it's not possible to learn a demon technique, but I've changed my mind. I want to learn how to fight, how to dance with a sword. Sumiyoshi's eyes, Yoriichi found, is the most beautiful yet when glittered under sunlight, with determination burning pink to orange and red in his irises. With endless conviction and emotion, Yoriichi silently admires. I don't have to do it like you, I simply have to learn, and dance by my own. Be my own. Because you won't give up, I, too, won't give up. It's Nezuko, my only family. I don't care if anyone said it's not possible. If they haven't tried it, how do they know it's not possible? I will look for the cure to the end of Japan. Even continue my journey forever if I have to. I will never give up if it's for Nezuko. Fortunately, you don't have to that, Tanjiro-kun. Huh? What do you mean, Tameo-san? You are correct to be sure of a cure, Kamado Tanjiro. There is a cure for demons. Tameo and I have been working on it for years. It is finished, and is our greatest work yet, as medical practitioners. This is the cure. All of this, you need only one vial for one person to turn from demon to human. It works for any demons, no matter how thick the demon blood is in their body. Tameo-san, Demon-san, this is a lot. Why are you just giving all these vials for me? This is what you're looking for? No. Why yes, but I only need one for. Would you rather leave other demons you see suffer in their demon forms? You see, Kamado Tanjiro, this is the offer I'm willing to give you. Take this one vial for your sister. This is a gift from me. The rest of these vials, there are 5 vials in that bag. They won't break if you fight, unless you use it as a shield. I suggest you not do that. I want you to deliver them to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters and present this to Ubuyashiki, the head of the Demon Slayer Corps. He will not be around much, so you tell any Hashira slayers of what happened in this clinic. Tell them everything, leave nothing out, except anything about Inosuke. His family situation is his own secret to tell, and you know how he is. Yes, I can see that. One more thing, do not take the cure here, and do not use any of these vials to any demons you encounter. Let Nezuko take the cure in their headquarters, and let the slayers examine the rest. Though I and Tameo know it's completely safe, I think it would be better for Nezuko to wake up somewhere safer. They have an inbuilt clinic and doctors for your sister if anything unexpected happened after she, or anyone for that matter, take the cure. Understand? Can you do it for me, Tanjiro-kun? Yes, I understand. I will deliver them safely. I promise you these vials would reach the headquarters safely. No, I swear it on my life, they would definitely reach there. With you, too, Tanjiro-kun. It would reach the headquarters with you safely. Yes, of course, Demon-san. Now, Inosuke, what did I say about peeping? But Dad, I can't hear anything. Well, let's go, Kamaboko. What are you doing just sitting there? I've been waiting for you since forever. We are going to our next mission together. You finally get to see the great Inosuke on action. Wait, are you crying? What did you do to him, Dad? Inosuke, don't pull. Oh, Nezuko's box. Oh, thank you, Tameo-san, for taking care of Nezu. Come on, Slojiro Kamamoro. I said don't pull. Oh, so you got strong hands, Hatontaro. Wanna go? Shut up, Inosuke, Demon-san. Demon-san, thank you. Thank you very much. I promise I will visit. I will come back with Nezuko. I will return it to you 100-fold. You don't have to worry. This dance live with me and my grandsons and grandsons of my grandsons. Thank you so much, Yoriichi-san. Thank you. I will always remember you. I will see you again. When he opened his eyes, the taste of the dream disappeared behind him. There's a white, unfamiliar ceiling. Yoriichi sat up, looking at his fingers, his hands, with an almost strange feeling in his chest. His hands was cut, they disappeared to dust, and yet here they are, whole and unblemished. Come to think of it, his chest is also fine. He could breathe just fine, with no burning pain, no feeling of choked by a blade. His heart was. Yoriichi shuddered. He died, didn't he? And yet here he is, alive and whole, in an empty, dark room, well clean despite clearly unused. There's a sword stand on the corner, the red sheath glimmering in dim light. Yoriichi didn't think he would wake up after that fiasco. He didn't think he'd died. It's not like getting killed by his brother is in his to-do list. But to be killed by his brother is not an unexpected route. And yet, he woke up. Because of the voice of Sumiyoshi. That dream, Yoriichi remembers now. His whole purpose, his reason for not letting himself get killed. And, that's right, he said they will see each other again. But Yoriichi have come to his and his family's grave, and never visited them again. It was Sumiyo's grandson he saw then, a complete stranger. Is that where he gave up? But it was Sumiyoshi's voice unmistakably. Echoes, even to this room. Sumiyoshi. His eyes glanced to the door where the voice have come from. That's not possible for Sumiyoshi to be alive again, but... Aura, so Muzan-kun is right, after all. Yoriichi dipped his head to the smiling face of Tameo as a greeting. His eyebrow raised then, a silent question in what does she meant, while his eyes roamed to their new house. Where are they now, and how long has it been? Muzan-kun is in his study. On this corridor, left door on the corner. Can't miss it. Instantly throw him to the demon's jaw now, Tameo-san. As crafty as, oh, she really does smell nice. Yoriichi can always see spices surrounding her like an aura, a kaleidoscope of relaxing color. But this close, with her hands around his middle, hugging gently, the smell is really prevalent. It's really calming. He didn't even realize how tense his body was. Sagging in her arms feels nice. To be cheeky, he even put his cheek on the top of her head, just to see her reaction. A huff of gentle, twinkling laugh, before Tameo pulled back. It's nice to have you back finally, my lord's son. Lord what? It is nice to be back, Tameo. He paused, thinking of more to say. Yoriichi has always been bad in socialization, but Tameo is not normal, nor is she a stranger. She waited with endless patience for Yoriichi to find his words. I've missed you both. Purple eyes lit up in glee, though there's soft, shining gratitude hidden in them. Oh, you have no idea. Muzan-kun would love to talk to you. She finally pulled back, pats his shoulder once, and walked away. Her humming is much too cheerful for anything other than a threat for Yoriichi's well-being. Alright, so, hi is not a good idea for someone to say when they return from a coma, apparently. How can Yoriichi knows that? Hi is Muzan's, and a lot of people's, standard greeting, right? Yoriichi almost worries that he broke Muzan by how the demon lord has stopped writing and simply stare at him for a solid 2 minutes. Muzan had then told him to sit, which Yoriichi does, and hold out your hand, which Yoriichi also does, without question, though feeling a bit like a dog. Then Muzan had rammed his brush on his hand, so hard it broke his hand and through the table, pinning his hand there. Yoriichi is more scared of his mental health than the pain on his hand. So began Muzan's recap of the last 200 years or so. This, Yoriichi's face pales. How did he manage to be asleep that long? By being an absolute fucking idiot, said Muzan. Yoriichi is more astonished that Muzan actually cursed. Oh man, now Yoriichi fears a bit for his life. I have a mission for you. Yoriichi, pale and a bit unsteady after that 3 hours long rant, blinked. Muzan is kicking him out. Already. Is he really that angry? Muzan, choosing to ignore Yoriichi's wide-eyed look, gave him a letter. Yoriichi accepted it warily. Tail Inosuke. You know which one. Just as he said that, Muzan prickled Yoriichi's wrist with his nail, a memory of a laughing boy with long black hair AMD floral Hayori which reminds him of Tameo appears in his mind. Yoriichi blinked, disoriented even more. He's a demon slayer, my son. Eventually, he will arrive at the demon slayer's headquarters. I want you to bring that letter to Ubuyashiki. Tameo also wants you to detour a bit to the Wisteria forest, where the slayer exams are. You are resistant to Wisteria now, aren't you lucky? A little bag was shoved in Yoriichi's hand next, his mind still reeling. Give them to a twin demon. Just say Tameo's name and they will appear. Any questions? You have a son. Muzan rolled his eyes. Get going then. Shu, who did you marry? I did not. What? You birthed him yourself. Get out. But why is your son a demon slayer? Out. Zenitsu Agatsuma is not having a good day. First, he got another demon slaying mission right after he finished the previous one. He knows there are much more demons than there are slayers, but really, he's new here. Should they really be pushing newbies like this? Do they want him to die or something? Second, he got lost, and he was robbed by a girl. But him being lost brought him to this beautiful girl, who was kind to him, and then showed him the correct direction, and smiles at him, and she smells nice, and her voice is so nice to hear, and she's kind enough to accompany him too, so. Zenitsu couldn't really complain about this one. Really? Haha. Not when his misfortune leads him to his bride-to-be. A little misfortune for a lifetime fortune is a pretty nice deal. But then, third, he lost the pretty lady. Why are you doing that? Stop it, said one of the weirdos in blue flower Hakama, pulling back Zenitsu by the collar and shaking it. Consequently, Zenitsu too, roughly. And he had sounded scared for Zenitsu, and that paused his sniffle a bit. In the background, he could hear the guy who's carrying a demon box on his back say to the girl, in a very kind, wind-chiming tone, I did not know that guy, really. We will be handling him. Sorry and have a safe trip, okay. But then, the girl turned in his direction, precisely, to the weirdo pretty guy in blue Hakama's direction. Seeing his pretty face and how the girl had blushed, Zenitsu continued his cry, thrashing in his grip. How dare this weirdo just came and steal his engagement? What do you mean what I'm doing? She needs to marry me. She's in love with me and she's going to Mar. Who said I was going to marry you? The girl stepped forward and yelled, and the pretty guy actually dropped his grip on Zenitsu Hakama to let him faceplant on the dirt. All I did was give you direction because you look pitiful. I have a fiancé, you crybaby. Stupid yellow. Why I oughta, you RGH. Goodbye. Had it not been for the guy in Hanafuda earrings holding the girl back, and the other pretty guy pulling Zenitsu back by the shoulders this time, Zenitsu would have been slapped several times. But that's fine. She hadn't said no yet and she helped Zenitsu. He still had a chance. Wait, please, don't go. Give it a rest, already. The kind guy in green checkered Hakama said, sounding gentle but tired. Yeah, stop it or you're going to die. Pops out the pretty guy, loudly, from behind Zenitsu. What do you mean by that? I'm going to die, that's why I have to get married soon to her. You're just being a nuisance. Don't yell at me. I was saving your life. To accompany his loud voice, he stepped forward to be in front of Zenitsu fully, in place to let yellow eyes gaze at his pale, beautiful face, contorting to such a scared and bewildered expression before it went abruptly blurry as the guy violently shook Zenitsu. What's gotten into you? You could die. That's no way you treat women. Oh Inosuke, don't sound so touched when he's treated like a sake bottle like this, damn it. Is it head injury? Are you an idiot? Now you both are being too dramatic, quiet down. Suddenly, Zenitsu could breathe properly again, now that he's not shaken around. Could taste dirt too, which he quickly rectified by crying about his pitiful, virgin, alone self who never would get married ever. He would die anytime and alone without love. Why are you both looking at me like that? What is wrong with that pretty guy? His face turned from pale white to a scared, bewildered, and finally pitying look. Like Zenitsu is an idiot who doesn't have a brain here. And also, the other guy who's carrying around a demon in a box, what's with that disgust? Stop staring at me like I'm sort of stupid or pitiful creature. This is all you both's fault that I didn't get married. I'm just a weakling, you understand. I'm hunting demons and could die anytime. I need to get married before that. And you both just ruined it. That's not, you're a swordsman. And a demon slayer. That means you are strong enough, so have some dignity. Yeah, I guess you could die soon, the guy said, picking his nose. Whhh, I'm going to die. A demon is going to eat me alive. Inosuke. Don't say that. What? Why are you both so loud? I quote him still louder. How can he say things just casually like that? With such a straight face. How cruel. How pretty. This world is unfair. But well, after that, it turns out both Inosuke Hashibira and Tanjiro Kamado, the guys he saw at Demon Slayer exam back then, are also headed on the same mission as Zenitsu. So maybe he lost his bride, and that's the worst, right? But now he had 2, 3 companions to complete his mission. It's still terrifying, of course, but maybe Zenitsu's not going to die that soon. He doesn't want his new, strange friends to die. But they both could talk with Chuntaro, and they are nice enough, even when they both sound like demons in one way or another. Tanjiro's demon echoes originated from his box, but Inosuke's demon echoes come from everywhere, like from his hakama and his blood, but not his blood. Ugh, it's confusing but mostly terrifying, considering it now. But Inosuke's not a bad guy. He's too honest, arrogant, and seems careless, but he's not bad at all. The manuscript demon in the mansion turns out to be easy pickings. Zenitsu guessed by how there's not even a hair astray on Inosuke and how Tanjiro doesn't suffer any wound at all. Not even a scratch. Zenitsu doesn't remember a lot about it. He does remember using Thunderclap and Flash, but that's about it really. The 3 of them ended up digging graves for a lot of bodies, Inosuke with a grudging pout. He also looked at those corpses with a considering look that didn't bode well with Zenitsu, like he wanted to bring some with him, wrapped in a cloth, as a gift or something. Disturbing. And judging by Tanjiro's glances at Inosuke and his sound, it seems like he had a hunch about it too. Zenitsu decided he won't mention anything about demon in a box or manuscript in blood, which Inosuke tucked in one of his uniform pockets. Even with that one mission done, another one instantly comes in. This time, in Natagumo Mountain. The mission started scarily and didn't get any better from then. First, they were flying blind, essentially greeted by hanging corpses, which horrified Tanjiro, and all Zenitsu wanted to do was book it out of the mountain. Because really, these are all demon slayers. There are dozens of them hanging around, wounded, bleeding, and alive. Used as puppets no less. What can the 3 of them do? 3. Somehow they cut through that forest of human puppets anyway, to meet with the gigantic ass of a demon. White-haired with a spider head and carrying equally gigantic log. And at this point, Zenitsu doesn't care if he's getting yelled at. He's so terrified he couldn't move. His legs are locked and numb and he's going to die. He's going to cry and lament about his life at this bush and never get out. Okay, I'll talk to him, Inosuke said, sounding and looking completely serious that Zenitsu couldn't help but yell. WH, which earned him Tanjiro's palm before Zenitsu could rat them all out. What do you mean, Inosuke? Tanjiro hissed. Even he doesn't agree with that stupid-ass plan. Inosuke just looked at the demon, ignoring his loud stomps, swinging around the forest, destroying trees to look for them. He's not the father, Inosuke whispered, low and dangerous from the quiet of bushes where they hide. His blue eyes narrowed to slits, never looking away from the demon. He sounds, oh, bewilderment and personal vendetta. Then, even lower, that's not the lower moon. Zenitsu's wail was promptly silenced by Tanjiro's hand still, but briefly. He could hear Tanjiro's disgust at seeing his checkered hakama wet with snot tears and his hand with drool. Not for long, though, because he looked at the demon closing in on them. Eventually, Tanjiro looked back at Inosuke, nodding in determination. Be careful. We will jump in when it gets dangerous. Inosuke rolls his eyes, as if he needs their permission. But he puffed his cheeks and sounded embarrassed nonetheless. Then, he regulated his breathing, and Zenitsu knew it was a technique used when Inosuke abruptly catapulted from their bush, flying into the air, and down swinging to the log. Zenitsu knew it was another technique used when the log split in half under Inosuke's jagged blades. But he couldn't see it, not even Tanjiro sees them, it seems. So fast. Tanjiro from beside him, already freeing Zenitsu's mouth and shaking his palm off Zenitsu's drool, muttered in awe. Zenitsu couldn't help but agree. Inosuke is fast. No, strong. Stronger than Zenitsu at least. Inosuke managed to land a hit then, a mere scratch on the shoulders, which made his blade stuck on the hard, dark brown skin. He had to jump away from a gigantic swinging hand, pulling his blade away, and landed across the small river, scowling. Hey, you idiot. Should you be attacking slayers like this? Inosuke yells, pointing at the demon with a jagged nichiren. There's an imaginary red corner at the edge of his forehead just by how annoyed he sounded. What is he doing? Zenitsu not screeched, panicking, turning to Tanjiro. What is that idiot saying? The demon tilts its head and breathes out menacingly. Zenitsu gulped in a whimper. Tanjiro looks as confused as he sounds. Hey, Oyaji, let me meet the real lower moon. Tell Rui Aniki that. Inosuke. Tanjiro jumped in too late, as Inosuke was already sent flying to the sky, punched by that burly demon. In the air, his Nichiren crosses in front of his body, presumably protecting him from most of the blow. I'll get you, down Spider Head. There's no more time to worry or sweat drop over Inosuke's yelling threats, however, as they both have to duck away from the white-haired demon now chasing them. Zenitsu ducked with a screech, but Tanjiro is dodging while still yelling at Inosuke, looking at the sky where the other had flown. Inosuke, don't you dare die. And that made Tanjiro vulnerable. Zenitsu doesn't think much. He jumped to Tanjiro and pushed him away from an incoming kick, and he blacked out. The next thing he knew is waking up in the middle of spiders of all things. Why can't he have nice things like waking up to beautiful girls for once? Then he got bitten while trying to explore around, watching the horrors of Honest to Buddha, a human-headed spider demon. And how he had to face another demon like him. Humans turned to spider demons. It was gross, and his entire body hurts, and his body is burning and numb, and he wants to cry and lay down and wait for Inosuke or Tanjiro to come in. And he forced himself to be brave. Yeah, it was scary, definitely, and it was painful. There are pinpricks of needles in his blood, pushing him down and killing him, but he couldn't stop here. Even if he had to die, no, that's not acceptable. Zenitsu Agatsuma is not going to die here. He will fight bravely and win, and survive. And only by that, Grandpa will. You're alive. There's another demon. Oh Buddha, there's another demon, red-eyed, with brown hair which darkens to blood at the edges, as if he had dragged them through the blood of his victims, whipping behind him, complementing the red hakama the demon uses. Even blurry and losing consciousness, Zenitsu could see the demon pulling out his sword, a katana as red as his bloody eyes, silver and black with the full moon behind him. Zenitsu tensed. Whatever he could do with the meager control over the muscles he couldn't feel anyway. Whatever he could reach, he tried to prepare for pain and not stop breathing. In fact, he should amp it once more. If he could use just one more thunderclap and flash to run away, one more. There's pain blooming in his shoulder, and the last thing Zenitsu could hear, startlingly clear amidst the agonizing pain, is the demon's voice. You've done well. Rest. Yellow and red fire engulfed his vision, and once again Zenitsu loses consciousness. The second time he woke, he was flying. No, really, he was flung. Thrown. Like a bag. What the hell is happening? Then, he hears it. Tanjiro. Save Emilia. Zenitsu. Come the ragged voice of his friend, far away. When Zenitsu turned his face to the source of his friend's voice, Tanjiro seems to struggle to crawl onto the ground. Zenitsu was cut off because he was suddenly eating dirt and blue hakama. He isn't Chuntaro after all, he couldn't fly. Inosuke rolled to sit down beside him, spitting out dirt, and he couldn't help but yell in relief, Inosuke. What? The guy snapped irritably and sounds utterly annoyed when Zenitsu cries and expresses his gratitude for saving him, snot and all, in front of him. Though, there's also a chime of embarrassment that didn't last long. Inosuke heaved Zenitsu up his head like a bag of potatoes and began running. Where are we going? Zenitsu screeched, because, where he could see from up here, the red-eyed demon is engaging with two demon slayers. They move so fast. Zenitsu couldn't actually see their movements. Only wet, cut trees and scorched earth left a millisecond where they had fought, and the whipping air, reaching even him, are the indications of the fight. What's happening? Shut up. Inosuke said, and stopped. As he stopped his steps, the ground in front of him was abruptly spilt into two and burnt, spewing a wall of fire. Zenitsu screeched. When the fire recedes, the previous demon was right there. His red katana was poised to strike at Zenitsu. His expression was serene, almost cold, as if he didn't want to kill Zenitsu at all. And once again, Zenitsu was braced for pain and fire. The katana glanced and cut his already abused demon slayer uniform. Blue fills his sight. A demon slayer, Water Hashira, stopped the demon first, a dancing dragon homing for the demon, and they jumped away. Fire and water clash, again, into the forest. Zenitsu, look alive, kiddos, screeched once more. This Hashira's grin, coupled with his sparkling, sharp gray eyes, looks like a copy of his grinning white fox mask, hanging loosely from his face. Orange hair tickled Zenitsu's cheek as the Hashira bent a little to ruffle both Inosuke's and Zenitsu's hair, rough, with the gentleness of an older sibling. Inosuke huffed, attempted to bite the Hashira's hand, and he laughed. Nice, you're both still spirited. Get to your friend and wait. Kacho is nearby. She'll heal you 3. Then, an explosion rocketed the ground, and the Hashira disappeared. Inosuke resumed his run to Tanjiro. When Zenitsu turned his head back to peek, there are twin waterfalls, which morphed into dragons, flying, running, chasing a streak of red. Steam emerges. Inosuke, Zenitsu, thank God you're both okay, Tanjiro said, already kneeling with a cut blade, the demon box still intact but noticeably bloody. Inosuke grunted. And what is with people throwing Zenitsu around today? OOWW. Can't you be more gentle? I can't feel my entire body here. I can't move, you know. But Inosuke hardly heard him, it seems. His attention is solely focused on the battle ahead, and this close Zenitsu could clearly hear worry, confusion, and anxiety, not for the slayers, but for the red-eyed demon. Tanjiro is similarly on board, looking at Inosuke and the battle at hand, quite pinched on who he should support. It's clear that both of them could still fight and are willing to fight, they just don't know to support which side. Which, isn't that bizarre? Hey, can someone tell me what is Inosuke? Inosuke, are they really going to run ahead like that? Wait, don't leave me alone. Tanjiro. Inosuke. Damn it, he doesn't want to die alone. Come on, stupid body, move. Regulate your breathing. Feel your muscles one by one. Lightning exists in his muscles. Hell, they produce those lightning. It couldn't be tamed that easily by poison. Just one spark. One spark. Red, that demon's blood art. Zenitsu. What the fuck, uncle? Don't burn my friend. Shit. Giuu. 11th technique. Dead. Again. Really? After getting poisoned, thrown, left alone. Not married, with a handsome, non-malicious demon being the last thing Zenitsu ever sees. This is such a ARGH. Worst day ever. Calm, uncle, demon Sam. Brats, you owe me so much explaining to do, right now. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And comment down your opinion on this video. Thanks for stopping by and I'll see you in the next one.